Chapter 159. Yang Yuelon did not want to follow them, mainly because she had never been to a place further than the town, and because she was not in good health, she did not want to cause trouble for them. Insu understood her, and walked in a circle in front of her. Yang Yuelon quickly reached out to help him and scolded. "Why are you so careless? You've just recovered a little." Insu smiled and said, "Mom, didn't you notice that I'm recovering very quickly? My recovery is much better than what the doctor said. I know my legs. They'll be fully recovered soon." Yang Yuelon was surprised and said, "You're really recovering? Thank God, you're really blessed." "It's not because of God, it's because of Xiang Xiang." Insu pulled Yang Yuelon to sit down together and said ambiguously, "Mom, think about it. Since Xiang Xiang married into our family, haven't good things been happening to our family? I think she's the reincarnation of a lucky star. She's changed our family for the better." Yang Yuelon was stunned. "But didn't Xiang Xiang almost burn to death when she rolled down the hill?" Insu nodded. "That's right. If someone else rolled down such a steep hill, they would definitely die. She only scratched her face and suffered some superficial injuries. How lucky is she? Her house was on fire, and even the doctor couldn't wake her up. She actually woke up and recovered. If this isn't a blessing, then what is?" Yang Yuelon was stunned by his words. After thinking about it carefully, she realized that it was true. Looking at it from a different perspective, it was completely different. Insu put his arm around her shoulders and continued. "Mom, look, don't you feel much better now? You were busy for a few hours yesterday and slept so late. If this was in the past, wouldn't you be lying down? Look at how energetic you are now. You were even quarreling with others just now. It's good that we're going together as a family. You can even watch over us and take care of us." Yang Yuelon suddenly came to a realization. "Why do I feel different? My body is much better." She stood up and walked around the house. She clapped her hands and said, "Xiang Xiang might really be very lucky. I have to follow her. Your legs haven't recovered yet. Let Xiang Xiang and Wen study hard. I'll take care of you. The two of them are girls, so I have to keep an eye on them. Then what about the things in the house? When are we coming back? Don't come back. Trust your son and daughter. We'll let you live a good life in the future. Don't come back." Insu looked around and said, "Ask the captain's family if they want these things and give them to them. We'll leave the house here and give the land to the captain to thank him for helping us so much. I'll take care of this matter. Mom, you just need to pack some simple things." Insu's legs were much better, and it was easier for him to move around. After he was done, he prepared to look for the brigade leader. Chu Xiang saw him walk out and asked, "Is it through?" Insu chuckled. "That's a good reason. It's easy to understand. I have to thank you, my lucky star." Huh? Chu Xiang was puzzled. What did it have to do with her? Our family has a lucky star. Everything goes smoothly. I'm going to look for the captain. Come with me, Fuxing. How about we catch 2 fish to eat on the way back? Sure, let's roast a few more sparrows. Yin Qiuwen watched the two of them walk out of the door with smiles on their faces. They even carried baskets. It was obvious that they wouldn't be back for a while. She couldn't help but ask Yang Yuelon, "Mom, will Sister Xiang really become my sister-in-law in the future? I like her so much. I can't imagine anyone else being my sister-in-law." Yang Yuelon smiled and said, "Xiang Xiang is such a good girl. Who wouldn't like her? Let's leave it to fate. It's our blessing that she stays. Even if she doesn't stay, she'll still be our family. Study hard in the future. Don't let down Xiang Xiang's hard work in helping you with your revision." "Mom, don't worry. I definitely won't let Sister Xiang down." The Yin family's plan to move the whole family went smoothly. The land was transferred to the captain's son at a low price. The things in the house were also ready for them to use. All they had to do was look after the house and sweep the dust from time to time. There were no secrets in the village. Chu Xiang was still catching sparrows in the mountains when the news spread. Many people lamented that they didn't have a good relationship with them. This good thing didn't even happen to them. The Chu family couldn't sit still. Previously, it was just Chu Xiang's honor. They didn't feel that they could get any real benefits. Now the house, land, furniture, and poultry were all real good things. Old Madame Fu brought Li Yuezhan and Chu Lan's mother to the door. Chu Xiang and Yin Su weren't at home. Yang Yuelan and Yin Qiuwen ignored her. She leaned against the door and shouted, "In-laws, are you going to the capital together? Look at you, you're too vengeful. What did my family do to you? You don't even recognize your family?" Chu Xiang is a university student. If she doesn't recognize her parents and elders, she... Shut your stinky mouth. Yang Yuelan walked out aggressively with a broom. Don't flaunt your seniority in front of me. Do you think our Yin family is easy to bully? You still dare to implicate Xiang Xiang? Who was the one who shamelessly chased Xiang Xiang out of the house? At that time, Xiang Xiang had just been discharged from the hospital and couldn't even stand properly. You black-hearted old woman still have the nerve to call yourself her elder? Hurry up and get lost. Even if you make a scene today, I won't give you a single blade of grass. Yang Yuelan picked up the broom and slammed it against the door. Old Madame Fu and the rest quickly hid behind. They were in a sorry state. The group of people around them laughed loudly. Old Madame Chu said angrily, "I'm not leaving today. Let's see if Chu Xiang cares about me." Chu Xiang and Yin Su just happened to come back with baskets. Li Yuezhan immediately went up to them and smiled. "Chu Xiang, Mom is here to see you." Yin Su pulled Chu Xiang behind him and said coldly, "There's nothing to see." Li Yuezhan wiped her tears and said, "Chu Xiang, do you hate me in your heart? Mom has no choice. You know that Mom can't make decisions at home. Mom has always been thinking about you. Don't blame Mom." Li Yuezhan was very smart. She used Chu Xiang to play the emotional card. This was very useful. Filial piety was a big mistake, especially when people who were older would stand on her side. However, there was something more important than filial piety, and that was the attitude of the in-laws. If the in-laws had a tough attitude, others could understand Chu Xiang's dilemma and even sympathize with her. Therefore, Yin Su didn't need Chu Xiang to say anything. He retorted, "You're so concerned about her, but you haven't even come to see her. That's really thoughtful of you. You visited Chu Xian in town, haven't you? I heard that Chu Xian hasn't been doing well in school recently. I think that since the Chu family is so restless and keeps causing trouble for others, he might be doing even worse." Li Yuezhan was shocked and her tears stopped. "What do you mean? What do you want to do?" Yin Su spread his hands. "What can I do? I'm just giving you a piece of advice. Accumulate virtue and do good. Think more about your precious son before you do anything." Facing him, Li Yuezhan could feel the threat coming from him. Yin Su had been on the battlefield and killed enemies. The skinny monkey who followed Yin Su had also killed enemies. What couldn't a person with blood on his hands do? Li Yuezhan didn't dare to pester him anymore. She was afraid that Yin Su would punish Chu Xian. Old Mrs. Chu became even more anxious. "What? You still want to touch my grandson? If you dare touch him, I'll hang myself in front of your house. My good grandson will look for you if anything happens." Yin Su pulled Chu Xiang around them and entered the house. He said calmly, "I'm afraid you won't be able to blame me for this. My leg hasn't recovered, so I can't do anything. Whatever happens to others has nothing to do with me." Old Mrs. Chu said angrily, "Chu Xiang, you." Yin Su closed the door and interrupted her. "Chu Xiang's matters have nothing to do with you, and your matters have nothing to do with Chu Xiang. Everyone in the village knows how you treat Chu Xiang, and how you treat the Yin family. No one is a fool. You can do whatever you want. You won't be able to take advantage of my family. Please go back." Chu Xiang said curtly through the door, "I still have the document of separation. It's written very clearly on it." Chu Xiang and the Yin family entered the house. No matter how much old Mrs. Chu shouted, it was useless. Old Mrs. Chu took advantage of her seniority and threw a tantrum. It was very useful to deal with others, but the Yin family didn't show up or say anything. What was the use of throwing a tantrum? In the end, she could only curse and go back. Old Mrs. Chu didn't give up and came again. In the end, Chu Xian came back in the afternoon and was beaten up in a gunny sack. The Chu family rushed to the Yin family to demand for justice. Yin Su said innocently, "You blocked my door. Can't you see that we didn't go out? What has Chu Xian's condition got to do with us? I thought you were lying. Where is Chu Xian hurt? Let everyone take a look. Old Mrs. Chu said with a straight face. Big Xian, let them take a look. My child was bullied to this extent. Does the Yin family have any shame? Chu Xian rolled up her sleeves and pulled up her trousers. She was so anxious that she lifted her clothes and exposed her belly. In the end, there was nothing. Not a single scar could be found. Chu Xian said in shock. What's wrong? It hurts. Why isn't there a bruise? Chu Xiang walked to Yin Su and sighed. Today, I'll make it clear in front of everyone. The Yin family will not give the Chu family anything. I have nothing to do with you. Don't play these tricks in the future. Accumulate some virtue for Chu Xian. Don't make things difficult for him. Please be a witness. I have nothing to do with the Chu family a long time ago. I don't want the Chu family to cause trouble for the Yin family. I hope everyone can understand. Understood, understood. We are all reasonable people. Yes, the Chu family is too outrageous. They are simply the vermin of our village. Old Mrs. Chu, don't be a demon. Even if you don't find it embarrassing, we are all embarrassed for you. Everyone condemned the Chu family for going too far. No one mentioned that Chu Xiang was unfilial. Chu Xiang and Yin Su thanked everyone and went straight back to the house. Li Yuezhen was afraid. She only had one son. There was no evidence that he was beaten. She couldn't find Yin Su to settle the score. What if something happened to Chu Xian, if she continued to cause trouble? She dragged old Mrs. Chu back and didn't let her do anything else. Chu Lan was chopping firewood at the educated youth's place. She was covered in dirt. When she heard that Yin Su was so protective of Chu Xiang, jealousy spread in her heart. She was gloating when she saw old Mrs. Chu causing trouble. Who knew that nothing would happen to Chu Xiang? She recalled that when she was scolded by old Mrs. Chu, Song Yang didn't even say a word. Everything was afraid of comparison. With Chu Xiang as a comparison, she felt that it was painful to even start a fire. Why was Chu Xiang always so lucky? She was disfigured. Why was her in-laws so fond of her? Chu Lan remembered that Chu Xiang was admitted to a military school. She couldn't help but gloat. Chu Xiang must have been influenced by Yin Su to choose a military school. Did she think it was so easy to get into a military school? Wait to make a fool of yourself with your arms and legs. Yin Su was also talking to Chu Xiang about her school. The military school was tough and abnormally strict. He wasn't afraid that she couldn't take it. He was just reminding her. Be friendly to your classmates. Don't be too fierce. I'm afraid you will hurt them. You have a lot of confidence in me? Of course. You are a lucky star. Chapter 160. It was still early for Chu Xiang and Yin Qiuwen to report to school, but they left early because they were going to move with their family. Everyone didn't expect it to be so fast, and the Chu family was caught off guard. The whole village saw them off at the entrance of the village. They followed them for a long time and asked them to come back more often. The Chu family didn't think of a good way to deal with them, but they just watched them leave. The Chu family couldn't restrain Chu Xiang because she didn't have a household registration. Chu Xiang's husband's family would stop her from getting married. Whatever they asked Chu Xiang to do, it was useless. They even caused Chu Xian to be beaten up. They really couldn't do anything. They didn't get any advantage. They were so angry that their eyes turned red. In the end, they wanted to make a scene at the entrance of the village. Anyway, they were not afraid of Yin Su's revenge after he left. However, the skinny monkey followed them not far away and glanced at them from time to time. They instantly understood that it was definitely the skinny monkey who put a sack on Chu Xian. At this time, they didn't dare to make a scene because Yin Su was their relative, and the skinny monkey was completely an outsider. He wouldn't have any scruples. For the sake of Chu Xian, they didn't dare to say anything. After Chu Xiang left, Chu Lan couldn't sit still. She thought of the year before the college entrance examination next year. She had to serve Song Yang alone until Song Yang was admitted to the university. She couldn't stop the disgust and sadness in her heart. Her bad mood was naturally revealed from her expression and behavior. Song Yang felt more and more that she was vain. He didn't want to take her away. Without saying anything, he contacted his family and got the transfer order. However, the transfer order must be passed through the brigade leader. Of course, the brigade leader helped the people in his village. He informed Chulan immediately. Chulan and Songyang made a scene. One insisted on taking the college entrance examination, and the other wanted to go to work. Chulan's mother also joined in, and forced Songyang to take Chulan back with him. In the end, of course, they left together. Chulan quarreled several times, but couldn't change Songyang's mind. His face couldn't be described as ugly. She could only comfort herself that she could still urge Songyang to revise when she went to the provincial capital. She could persuade Songyang to take the college entrance examination after a year. She didn't want to be laughed at by the villagers, so she bragged about Songyang's work as an accountant. She made it sound like he was a big shot in the provincial capital. The villagers didn't know her well, so of course they praised her and envied her. They all praised her for her good fortune. Chulan was happy. She used the last bit of her mother's money to make a new set of clothes, and left with Songyang in a grand manner. After Chulan and Songyang left the village, the Chu family fell into the most awkward situation. Everyone knew that the Chu family was powerful. Both of their granddaughters were golden phoenixes that flew out of the family. One was admitted to a university, while the other went to the provincial capital to live a good life. However, everyone also laughed at the Chu family, because they had driven Chu Xiang and Chu Lan out of the house one after another. They only kept Chu Xian as a treasure. In the end, when Chu Xiang and Chu Lan rushed out, Chu Xian was still foolishly fooling around. The two sisters had a good life after leaving the Chu family. No matter how one looked at it, it was the Chu family's fault for holding them back. In this series of torments, the Chu family also used up all of their savings. They became the poorest family in the village and completely became the laughingstock of the village. Chu Lan went to the provincial capital. Because of her rebirth, her foresight was advanced, so the Song family didn't find fault with her. However, how they treated Chu Lan depended on Songyang's attitude. Songyang was already faintly tired of Chu Lan. Chu Lan always showed dissatisfaction with the job of an accountant, and stared at Songyang to study for the exam. The Song family naturally didn't like her and got along with her very unhappily. Chu Lan also tried to persuade her in-laws to pay for her to sell clothes with her, but she didn't know that her fate had returned to its original place. She was unlucky in her previous life, and she would be the same in this life. The luck that she had stolen before had all disappeared. This was the life that she should have lived. Chu Xiang was living very well. She was like a fish in water in the military academy. She was first in all the exams. As soon as she entered the school, she received the attention of the entire school. Her appearance was also unique. The scar on her face was already very shallow. Not only was it not mocked, but it also became a medal for her strength. It added a bit of a cold temperament to her. Chu Xiang's body cultivation in the apocalypse wasn't in vain. That little bit of spiritual power nourished her every day and strengthened her physique. It allowed her to withstand all the intensity of the exercises in the military academy, and her strength improved rapidly. The military academy also systematically taught combat knowledge, and this kind of modern military knowledge was exactly what Chu Xiang lacked. She would sit at the front of every class and listen very attentively. Over time, she practically became the role model of this batch of students. Everyone looked up to her, and looked up to her. Naturally, there were many male students who admired her. After In Su confirmed that his leg was completely healed, he specially went to the school to pick up Chu Xiang from school. There, he saw a male student chasing after Chu Xiang and forcing him to give her something. Chu Xiang, this book is really good. I begged my dad for a long time to get it. Take it. Chu Xiang smiled and said, I don't take anything for nothing. Why would I want your treasure? Take it back. If you don't want to take it for free, then promise to teach me marksmanship. Wouldn't we be even then? Chu Xiang stopped and looked at him. Luobin, people who treat me like an idiot don't have good endings. Your marksmanship is second. If you want to learn, you should learn from the instructor, not me. Luobin laughed and said, You already guessed it. Give me an answer. That's what I like about you. No one else can compare to you. Chu Xiang hugged the book and snorted. Breaking a military marriage is against the law. I think what you should learn is not marksmanship, but law. Go back and study hard. Don't bother me. Chu Xiang turned and was about to leave. Luo Bin anxiously reached out to pull her, but Chu Xiang threw him over her shoulder. Ouch. Chu Xiang, you are too ruthless. Luo Bin curled up on the ground and cried. Chu Xiang walked past him and saw Yin Su leaning against the door leisurely. She said unhappily, "What are you looking at? Why aren't you helping me?" Yin Su put his hands in his pockets and shrugged. "Isn't it because you are too fierce and don't need my help?" This was the first time Luo Bin saw Yin Su. From Chu Xiang's attitude, he guessed his identity. He quickly got up, patted the dust off his body and walked over. "Hello, comrade. You are Chu Xiang's husband, right? Hearing about you is not as good as meeting you in person." Luo Bin extended his hand, and Yin Su shook hands with him. Unexpectedly, Luo Bin deliberately squeezed his hand and tried to show off his strength. Yin Su squeezed even harder and used some techniques to pinch Luo Bin's tendons. It was so painful that Luo Bin's face changed. Yin Su smiled faintly. "You like to joke? Me too. Please forgive me." He let go of his hand and looked at the calluses on Luo Bin's hand. "You are holding the gun the wrong way. If you don't change it for a long time, it will affect your accuracy. Ask your instructor." Luo Bin retorted. "What do you do for a living? You even know how to use a gun?" Yin Su smiled. "I served in the military. Soldiers still need to be trained to achieve success. Student, don't disturb my wife's studies. Study hard. You still have a lot to learn." Yin Su then left with Chu Xiang. Luo Bin was doubting his life. He was beaten up by the two of them. In the end, he, a military cadet with excellent results, was ridiculed by Yin Su. What is the meaning of this couple? Luo Bin went to look for their instructor and seriously asked about holding a gun and calluses. In the end, what Yin Su said was true. The instructor saw Luo Bin's expression and knew that someone must have made him suffer. He laughed and asked, "You are usually very arrogant. Now you have kicked a steel plate. Who made you suffer? I have to reward him." Luo Bin said angrily, "Are you his instructor or mine?" He is just a retired soldier. What's so great about him? I really don't know why Chu Xiang treasures him so much." Chu Xiang's husband is a retired soldier? Then they are quite fated. What is his name? Maybe I know. His name is Yin Su. He is retired. What? The instructor's eyes widened. Chu Xiang's husband is Yin Su? Yin Su is the best soldier in our camp. The instructor put on his cap and walked out. "No, I have to look for him." Instructor, what are you doing? Are you for real? Yin Su is better than you? Luo Bin was immediately attracted. He hurriedly grabbed the instructor and asked, "If he is so strong, why did he retire?" "You are mistaken. There are many people with the same name. It might not be him." "It is him. Who can tell that you are holding the gun the wrong way just by looking at you?" Yin Su definitely can. He is a sharpshooter who never misses. The instructor was like a chatterbox. He could not stop talking about Yin Su. He even dragged Luo Bin to look for him. Unfortunately, Yin Su was long gone. Luo Bin was still asking questions, but the instructor was not in the mood. He casually dismissed him and immediately called the military to report. A while ago, the military had looked for Yin Su. There was a mission location that only Yin Su had been to. This time, they wanted Yin Su to help lead the team. Who knew that Yin Su would break his leg? Now that the instructor knew that Yin Su had come to Beijing and had recovered, he was even happier than Yin Su himself. He immediately reported it. The mission location was very dangerous. Being familiar with the unknown terrain could minimize casualties. Yin Su was very useful. If he could return to the military, it would definitely be a blessing for the military. The higher-ups did not expect that Yin Su could recover completely. They were shocked and immediately sent someone to contact him. On the second day, Chu Xiang was called out by the instructor when she was about to go to class. Chu Xiang had a good attitude when admitting her mistake. She spoke first. "Instructor, Luo Bin kept pestering me, so I taught him a lesson. I only threw him over my shoulder and did not do anything to him." The instructor was stunned and said in shock, "You threw Yin Su over? This stinking brat. He only told half of the story. Outrageous. The instructor called out Luo Bin and said with disappointment, "You should reflect on yourself. Your body is too weak. Go and run 50 laps." Luo Bin could not refute. He took a deep breath and ran. He regretted telling the instructor about this countless times. Why did he tell the instructor about this? He was asking for trouble. The instructor shook his head and explained to Chu Xiang, "It's like this. I have something that I want to talk to Yin Su about. Can you take me there?" "Oh, of course. We can go now." Chu Xiang was a little surprised that he was looking for Yin Su. However, it did not matter if they met. It was not like they were enemies. Chu Xiang brought the instructor back to the courtyard they rented in Beijing. From afar, she saw Yin Su getting out of a truck and instructing a few workers to move things. "Yin Su," Chu Xiang shouted. "Our instructor is looking for you." Yin Su grabbed a towel to wipe his sweat. He walked over and patted the instructor's shoulder with a smile. "Fatty, you changed jobs?" The instructor called Fatty was full of excitement. "Suji. Come back, Suji. The military needs you." Chapter 161. Yin Su was amused by the fatty's appearance and introduced him to Chu Xiang. "This is Li Dong. We used to be in the same unit and have known each other for a long time." He then said to Li Dong, "This is my wife Chu Xiang. I didn't expect you to be her instructor. What a coincidence." Chu Xiang was a little surprised. "From the same unit? Come, let's go inside." "Instructor, what did you mean just now? Yin Su can still return to the army?" Li Dong walked into the courtyard with the couple and said, "I just called the army last night, and that's what the regiment commander meant. Brother Su, that place is dangerous. It's not easy for you to come back in one piece. It's even harder for others. Previously, when the regiment commander found out that you broke your leg and stayed in the office alone for an entire afternoon, he definitely felt sorry for you. Hey, Brother Su, is your leg okay now?" Yin Su patted his leg twice. "It's okay. I didn't expect it either. So the mission has been shelved and you haven't gone yet?" "It's still in the preparation stage. You have to be careful and only go when you're ready. But Brother Su, if you go back, it'll be easy. You'll solve a big problem." "Oh right, I'm not transferring to the army. The regiment commander transferred me here to select elite soldiers. I'll be returning to the army in a few days. Brother Su, if you go back, I'll apply for an early transfer and go on a mission with you." Li Dong glanced at Chu Xiang and smiled at Yin Su. "Brother Su, you're not bad. You got married so soon and your sister-in-law is still so awesome. She beat everyone in the first grade. She's amazing." Chu Xiang calmly accepted the fact that her instructor had become a younger brother, and said modestly, "It's all about daily academic results. No one is serious." Yin Su laughed and said, "Yes, if they were serious, they would be tortured even more." Yang Yuelan walked out of the house. When she heard that Li Dong was Yin Su's comrade and Chu Xiang's instructor, she immediately warmly welcomed him into the house, and even poured him some hot water. Li Dong had heard from Yin Su that his mother's health wasn't good. Yin Su retired from the army because of this. He didn't expect Yang Yuelan to be so healthy. He couldn't help but ask, "Brother Su, are you trying to trick the regiment commander? This is completely different from yours." Yin Su slapped him on the back. "What are you thinking? I'm just lucky. Everything is fine now. Stop guessing. I'll contact the leader later. If the army needs me, I will definitely not shirk my duty. If you want to transfer back, you should write the application as soon as possible." Li Dong jumped up excitedly. "Brother Su, are you serious? Then I'll go back and write it." "Hey, wait a minute." Chu Xiang stopped him. "Instructor, how's the selection of elite soldiers coming along? Am I there? If there is, can I apply to join the army in advance?" Li Dong was surprised. "What? Was there even a need to talk about progress? Sister-in-law, I will definitely choose you, but entering the army is not child's play. I can't do this. Why did you go in earlier? Didn't I hear that you have a dangerous mission? I also want to help." Chu Xiang looked at Yin Su. "Can you help me ask? I promise that I will help and not cause trouble." You know that my learning progress is much faster than those in school. No problem. Chu Xiang did not live in school. She would go home every day and ask Insu if she had any doubts. Therefore, Insu knew her best. Even if Li Dong and Skinny Monkey worked together, they were still no match for Chu Xiang. Whether it was in terms of IQ or skills, she could beat them. Therefore, Insu did not immediately accuse her of fooling around. Instead, he seriously considered the possibility. He had been to that place and knew how difficult the mission was. It was so difficult that the leader had not sent anyone for so long. He could not simply send anyone to die. He had already decided to return to the army to accept this mission. If Chu Xiang helped him, the success rate would be greatly increased. Rules were dead, but people were alive. Completing the mission was the most important thing. Li Dong saw that he was seriously considering it, and said in surprise, "Brother Su, are you really going to take sister-in-law there? It's too dangerous. The military school is different from the army." Insu waved his hand. "I know what I'm doing. I'll apply to the leader and let him decide. Fatty, since you're here, have a meal with us. Skinny Monkey will come over later. You haven't seen each other for a long time. Let's have a good gathering. Skinny Monkey is here too? Okay, I won't leave first. I have a lot to say." Li Dong sat down and chatted with Insu happily. He was like a fanboy who had met his idol. His eyes were shining. This was the first time that Chu Xiang learned about Insu's past. She realized that he was more important in the army than she thought. He was also stronger than she thought. She heard that Li Dong and the others' days in the army were quite interesting. The house was not big. Yang Yuelon heard their conversation from the kitchen. She could not help but ask Chu Xiang to go grocery shopping. When they were outside, she asked, "Are you both going to the army? Why does it sound like a dangerous mission to me? What exactly is it for?" Chu Xiang held her hand and smiled. "I'm not sure about the details of the mission. It's all confidential. You're not allowed to know. But Insu was fine when he left the army. He's capable. Mom, you don't have to worry too much." Yang Yuelon sighed. "How can I not worry? Many soldiers did not come back. It's so hot at home. Mom, if you don't want Insu to go." Yang Yuelon shook her head and interrupted Chu Xiang. "No, it's an honor to be a soldier. Insu does all the missions for the country. Since the army needs him, he has to go. Mom understands everything. Both of you have your own ideas. You can do whatever you want. Mom's health is better now. Wen is also doing well in school. You don't have to worry about our family." Chu Xiang smiled. "It's great to have such an open-minded mother." Chu Xiang and Yang Yuelon smiled and went grocery shopping. They were like biological mother and daughter. They were intimate and warm. Chu Lan looked up from the opposite side of the road and saw this scene. She felt like she was pricked by a needle. Chu Xiang was dressed in fitting and decent clothes, looking especially valiant and formidable. She was in high spirits. Chu Lan looked down at herself. She was wearing old clothes and carrying a big bag. Her hair was messy. She looked like an auntie. She lowered her head and turned around. She did not want Chu Xiang to see her. She came to the capital to buy goods. She did not expect to meet Chu Xiang. If she had known, she would have dressed up carefully. How could she be compared to Chu Xiang, who was disfigured? Chu Lan avoided Chu Xiang, but she was curious about Chu Xiang's life now. Since they left the village, they had no contact with each other. She thought that Chu Xiang must be suffering in the military academy. Now it seemed that it was not the case. Chu Xiang was living quite well. She especially wanted to know what kind of life Chu Xiang was living now. Chu Lan followed them from a distance. It was very inconvenient and tiring to carry a big bag. However, she did not feel tired at all. She just wanted to know the answer. Chu Xiang soon found her. After knowing that it was her, she did not pay much attention to her. The mother-in-law and daughter-in-law bought a lot of good food. They also bought fruits and melon seeds. Chu Lan's face was not very good. They bought so many things and did not feel bad at all. Didn't it mean that they were living a good life? She had not tasted meat for 2 months. Chu Lan followed them unwillingly. She followed them until they entered the yard. The yard was not big, but it was not bad either. The main reason was that the location was very good. It cost a lot to rent a house in the capital. There was a truck parked at the gate of the yard. Skinny Monkey instructed the workers to move the goods into the yard. Although she did not know what the goods were, the value was definitely much more than the pile of goods in her hands. Chulon thought that Insu drove a truck to transport goods in his previous life, and made a lot of money. Then she thought about how Songyang did not study at all, and only earned a little money as an accountant in a factory. Her heart was as uncomfortable as if it was filled with sour water. Insu had an accident while driving in his previous life, but now they were no longer in their hometown. They were in the capital. Who knew what would happen in the future? Maybe he could make a lot of money and become a big boss. She was really going crazy. When Insu saved her grandfather's leg, Yang Yuelon clearly wanted her to marry him. If she had known that things would turn out like this, she should have married Insu and supported him when Insu was at his weakest. She would have had countless good days in the future. But in her previous life, Songyang was an official. How could she know that Songyang was useless in this life? Why was she always so unlucky? She even chose the wrong person when she was reborn. Chulon stayed outside the Yin residence for too long. Skinny Monkey was also a soldier, so he found her in a short while. Skinny Monkey and a few workers said, "Do you see that woman over there? Be careful in the future. If you see her nearby, keep an eye on her. Don't let her do anything. This person has a bad heart." A few workers agreed, and deliberately looked at Chulon a few times to remember her. Chulon was very uncomfortable being looked at. She turned around and left in a sorry state. She walked quickly for a while, and only stopped when her hands were tired. Only then did she realize that after carrying the goods for so long, her hands were red and her arms were sore. A girl ran over, panting. She grabbed her and asked angrily, "Where did you go? You disappeared as soon as I turned around. Do you know how long I've been looking for you? Why are you so unreliable?" Chulon said impatiently, "Didn't I find you? Why are you talking to your sister-in-law?" "Oh, you're acting like a sister-in-law when you don't have any reason? Do you have the manners of a sister-in-law? Let me tell you, this is the last time. You promised your family that you'll make money this time. If you don't, you can divorce my brother and go back to your hometown. My family can't afford to serve you." Chulon thought of Yin Xiuwen's attitude towards Chu Xiang. She didn't like the sister-in-law in front of her. She felt uncomfortable and directly stuffed half of the goods to the sister-in-law. She said coldly, "No wonder you can't get married with such a loose mouth. Making money is everyone's business. Losing money is my business. What are you doing? You don't need to care about my business with your brother. Haven't you heard of a sister-in-law caring about her brother's business? Don't you have any shame? Who's the shameless one? Chulon, you shamelessly pestered my brother. Do you have any shame? Do you think I don't know that it was you who seduced my brother in the countryside that caused him to not be admitted to university? You're the most shameless one." Their voices were a little loud. Chulon saw many people looking in their direction. Her face flushed red. She glared at the sister-in-law fiercely, picked up the goods and left. It was the first time she came to the capital in her life. When she left, it was as if she was fleeing. When she got on the train, her mind was still full of Chu Xiang's smiling face. Chu Xiang was obviously living a good life. This was very different from what she had imagined. If a person who graduated from the military academy was directly an officer, then wouldn't Chu Xiang be an officer in the future? Wouldn't she be more powerful than in her previous life? What did her rebirth change? Could it be that she wanted Chu Xiang to live a better life? Chulon was absent-minded all the way. The train was crowded, so she and her sister-in-law were pushed far away. They couldn't take care of each other. When she got off the train, Chulon was shocked to find that she had lost her goods. She only had one thought left. Her bad luck had come. Chapter 162. Chulon hurriedly got off the train and grabbed people to look for her bag. Many people were grabbed for no reason, and some even felt pain on their wrists. They couldn't help but frown and curse. Chulan's sister-in-law was embarrassed, but she couldn't ignore this matter. She ran over irritably and asked, "What are you doing? Where's the bag? There were 4 or 5 bags, and you lost them? Did you sleep like a log or something?" Chulan said angrily. If I knew, how could I lose them? How would I know where they came from? You didn't sleep like a log, and you weren't far from me. You should have been watching. What are you talking about? The sister-in-law's face immediately turned green. She pushed Chulan hard. Hey, what right do you have to scold me? Are you a mad dog? You bite whoever you catch. What does it have to do with me if you lose it? Can't I go to the toilet? Let me tell you. Don't try to act all high and mighty here. You'll be scolded if you lose the goods that cost so much money. Get lost. Useless thing. You only know how to delay my business. Can't you see that I'm looking for it? Why are you holding me back? It's all your fault that I can't find it. Chulan was annoyed and couldn't pretend to be patient anymore. She directly showed her true colors and scolded the sister-in-law until she was stunned. The sister-in-law couldn't take this anger. She didn't wait for her and left first. She ran home and cried loudly. She added fuel to the fire and complained to Chulan. Chulan was still looking for her goods at the train station. She only fell to the ground dejectedly when all the people who got off at this station had left. Losing the goods wasn't the biggest blow. It was bad luck. She couldn't believe that the bad luck from her previous life had returned. Was she going to be unlucky in the future? She prayed so sincerely to God. But was it all useless? Then why did they keep asking her to be reborn? Just to let her suffer again. A police officer saw that she wasn't in a good state and came forward to ask. Chulan acted like she was grasping at a life-saving straw and quickly reported the situation to the police, begging them to help her find the goods. The police were very responsible. They took her back to the police station to record her statement and sent someone to investigate. But in this era without surveillance, there were so many people at the station with big bags. Where could he find them? It was not without reason that thieves were rampant in this era. If it were not for the fact that thieves were caught and shot 2 years ago, there would be even more thieves now. Especially in a place like a train station, once something was lost, there was a 99% chance that it would not be found. Chulan waited at the police station until it was dark, but all he got was disappointing news. In her heart, she did not have much hope of recovering those goods. The disappointing news was more like a confirmation that her bad luck was still ongoing and had not ended. No one knew her bad luck better than her. How could the police help her find her things? Even if she found the thief, the goods must have been destroyed for various reasons. It was impossible for her to get them back. Chulan walked home dejectedly, feeling extremely wronged. However, she never expected that what awaited her at home was not comfort, but a trial by the 3 courts. As soon as she entered the house, she saw Songyang and her parents-in-law sitting there. They were staring at her as if they wanted to tear her apart. Their faces were as ugly as they could be. She paused and took the initiative to strike first. When I go out, we must take care of each other. My sister didn't like me and kept a distance from me all the way. I couldn't take it and took a nap and lost several bags of goods. Her mother-in-law slammed the table. Shut up. Do you mean that it's my daughter's fault that you lost the goods? Why are you so good at lying? It's your mouth that fooled us. We gave you so much money to sell the clothes, but in the end, you lost everything and still dared to bully my daughter? Chulan defended herself. I didn't lose everything. You saw it when I first started to make money. It was indeed very profitable. Otherwise, you wouldn't have given me the money, right? Then everyone agreed to do business. There are losses and profits in this thing. How can you blame me? Didn't my sister bring back a few bags of clothes? I'll think of a way to change the style and sell them at a good price to make up for the losses. I definitely can't lose. Can't lose? Bah. Her mother-in-law stood up and pointed at her nose. I finally understand. You're only good at talking. You don't know anything else. You can't do anything, and you still want to touch those clothes. Dream on. Back then, when you got better, this will be the last time. If you don't get better, divorce Songyang. Don't stay and don't leave. Tomorrow, get a divorce. Get it done immediately. Chulan said anxiously. This doesn't count. How can this count? I'm not getting a divorce. I won't do anything about this. She looked at Songyang and said angrily. Songyang, say something. Songyang frowned and said. Chulan, The two of us are indeed not suitable for each other. Let's part on good terms. Get the divorce done. Let's not hold each other up. Chulan said in disbelief. Songyang, say that again? Who took care of you in the countryside? Who took care of all the chores at home and let you study hard? Who let the whole family support you? You want to divorce me now? You're ungrateful. You're an ingrate. Songyang frowned even more. I didn't ask you to do these things. I didn't have to go to college. It was you who wanted me to go to college. Ever since I didn't go to college, you kept nagging me to revise and take the college entrance examination. Do you know how annoying it is? I really can't stand you anymore. If I could do it all over again, I'd rather not know you. Chulan felt like she had been punched hard. She was in so much pain that she couldn't speak. She held her chest and took a few breaths. She rushed up to hit Songyang in exasperation. You bastard, easy for you. I'll beat you to death. Stop. Her parents-in-law were definitely helping their row. They hurriedly pulled her away. Her mother-in-law even hit her a few times. This time, the Song family couldn't tolerate her anymore. She actually dared to hit Songyang. In the eyes of the Song family, this was the most unforgivable crime. The Song family wanted them to get a divorce. Chulan was even angrier and more aggrieved than them. She married Songyang to be the curator's wife. Now that Songyang didn't want to improve himself and didn't even read books, what hope did she have? Even if she married a real estate developer, she would be a rich wife in the future. Wasn't it better than being an accountant? Chulan thought it through and said firmly, let's get a divorce then. Whoever doesn't get a divorce is a coward. After that, she deliberately pushed Songyang, not wanting to lose momentum. Unexpectedly, Songyang didn't stand firm and fell to the ground after being pushed by her. The back of his head hit the stone on the ground heavily. A lot of blood immediately flowed out. Songyang had already fainted. Chulan was frightened. She was still holding her hand and didn't know what to do as she stepped back. Her parents-in-law were already crying on the ground for help. They were very loud. The neighbors immediately ran over to help. They pressed a towel on Songyang's wound and carried him to the hospital. This couldn't be hidden. Songyang was still in the emergency room. The people nearby knew that Chulan had hit Songyang's head. The more the news spread, the more serious it became. Even Chulan was stunned and scared. Fortunately, Songyang was saved. Although the first sentence he said when he woke up was divorce, he survived and didn't let Chulan take a life lawsuit. However, Songyang was not weak. He felt dizzy when he was helped to sit up. It was even worse when he got down. The doctor asked him to stay in bed for 3 months. His accounting job was replaced by someone else. The Song family hated Chulan to death. They didn't want to see her for a second. Early the next morning, they dragged Chulan to file for a divorce. The work unit also considered Songyang's actual situation. Even if Songyang couldn't be there in person, they still approved their divorce application. Chulan tried so hard to marry Songyang, but they divorced inexplicably. She didn't get anything and worked for nothing. She had no savings and nowhere to go. She couldn't even afford to rent a house. She could only buy a ticket to go back to her hometown. At first, the villagers warmly welcomed her when they saw her. They thought that she was returning to her hometown, and that she was going back to the Chu family to show off the things that the village didn't have. In the end, not only did Chulan have nothing new, but even her clothes were old. It was obvious that she didn't have a good life. Chulan was angry and wasn't in the mood to deal with others. She walked all the way to the educated youth site with a straight face. Someone she knew told her that the site had been assigned to someone else. It didn't belong to her after she left. Chulan was stunned for a while. She thought about it and realized that she could only go back to the Chu family. Someone had already spread the news of her return. Chulan's mother ran over to greet her. However, when she saw her expression, she knew that something was wrong. She asked nervously, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" Chulan walked forward with a black face. "Let's go back." She didn't have the face to get a divorce. In this era, divorce was looked down upon, especially in the countryside. Divorce was completely unacceptable. She simply quarreled with Songyang. The reason was easy to find. She was ambitious and wanted to go to college. Her in-laws didn't allow her to do so, so they asked her to sell clothes to make money. She had to hand over all the money she earned to her mother-in-law. She was wronged. The people who listened were filled with righteous indignation and wanted to vent their anger for her. Even the Chu family was very angry. It was as if they had forgotten all the previous unhappiness. Chu Lan's lie also revealed another meaning. That was, she was really good at making money and selling clothes. She was so good at business that her in-laws only allowed her to do this and didn't allow her to go to college. This made many people think. Now the most enviable people were self-employed people. They could make money, and they could even make 10,000 yuan. Now that Chu Lan could make money, why should she let the Song family make money? They could treat her better, flatter her, and let her help them earn money. Many people had this idea. The captain felt that something was wrong and reminded some people. But the temptation of benefits was the most moving. The captain didn't have any evidence, so he couldn't stop everyone from getting rich. Chu Lan took advantage of this opportunity and raised a total of 800 yuan in the village. In the name of going to the capital to buy goods, she took the money and ran away. Not long after, an educated youth in the village received a letter from the provincial capital. Because everyone knew each other, the letter included the matter between Song Yang and Chu Lan as a joke. Things like breaking heads, losing goods, bullying sister-in-law, and so on were all exposed. This time, the villagers were in an uproar. They were so anxious that they blocked the Chu family and asked them to find Chu Lan and return the money. Chu Lan's mother was frantically trying to explain the situation to everyone. However, the other members of the Chu family were even more distressed about the little money they had left. They were also victims, and the first thing Chu Lan took was their money. The captain was helpless. He called Yin Su and asked Yin Su to help pay attention to Chu Lan's traces. Then, he asked his son to go to the capital to find Chu Lan. Whether he could find her or not, he had to find her at least once. It was also to give everyone an explanation. Chu Lan didn't want to go to the capital at first. In the end, she got on the wrong bus. Not only did she have to go to the capital, but there were no seats. She could only stand for more than 10 hours. She hid the money in her clothes and protected it tightly with her hands. It was good to go to the capital. This time, she must live better than Chu Xiang. Chapter 163. Chu Xiang had no feelings for the Chu family, and Yin Su naturally had no good feelings for them either. He really didn't want to get involved in the Chu family's affairs. However, the captain had helped them in the past, and the money was the hard-earned money of the villagers. Yin Su thought about it, and decided to take care of it. Of course, he wouldn't come forward to take care of it himself, so he didn't want to get involved with the Chu family. He directly called the police. Ever since he contacted the regiment commander had contacted his acquaintances in the capital and asked them to help take care of Yin Su's family. This acquaintance was the director of the Public Security Bureau. Yin Su only mentioned such a small matter to the director's secretary. Chu Lan arrived in the capital full of expectations for a good life. As soon as she got off the train, she was arrested by the police. She turned pale with fright and struggled violently, but she was still detained at the police station. She was suspected of swindling money from the villagers. There was evidence and she was arrested. Even if she refused to admit it, more than a dozen villagers in the village were clamoring for justice. After Chu Lan was locked up, she was directly sent back to the village. Naturally, the money on her was confiscated and transferred to the captain. Chu Lan's trip to the capital was simply a one-day trip, and it was a one-day trip to prison. She was muddle-headed when she returned to the village. When she returned to the village, more than a dozen people who had been swindled by her blocked the entrance of the village and threw rotten leaves and dung balls at her. There was even an agitated old lady who splashed swill on her. Chu Lan screamed and covered her face. Chu Lan's mother rushed forward to block them, but she couldn't. The mother and daughter were both drenched. Everyone scolded her harshly. She had swindled so much money that the villagers were furious. Chu Lan knew the consequences of being convicted, so she refused to admit it. She said that she went to the capital to buy goods and didn't swindle any money. However, There were 2 witnesses who confirmed that she had secretly avoided all the rows when she left. At that time, they didn't know that she had taken the row's money. Otherwise, they would have stopped her at that time. There were witnesses and evidence. In addition, more than a dozen villagers who had been swindled refused to reconcile. They all accused Chu Lan of swindling. Chu Lan's crime was quickly confirmed, and she was directly locked up in prison. No matter how much Chu Lan knew that she was unlucky, she didn't expect that she would be so unlucky. She was a free person in her previous life, but now she was a prisoner. She was unwilling to give up, but all her efforts were in vain. She could only stay in the prison, feeling more and more despair. Chu Lan's incident caused a huge uproar in the village. Since the liberation of their village, there had never been such a bad person. Nowadays, there was no need to talk about family structure, but people's thinking had not changed. If there was a criminal in the family, then her whole family would be looked down upon. First, the Chu family was ungrateful and didn't care about their benefactor. Then they favored boys over girls and chased their granddaughter out of the house. Then they shamelessly wanted to take advantage of the Yin family. They were already known in the village. Now that the Chu Lan incident was exposed, they couldn't even raise their heads. They were despised by the entire village and didn't even dare to leave their homes. Chu Xiang was the only one in the entire Chu clan who was spared. Although she had already severed all ties with the Chu clan, she would still be implicated when her cousin committed a crime. But the key point was that it was the brigade leader who asked Insu to take back Chu Lan. Previously, Insu had said many times in public that Chu Xiang and the Chu clan had nothing to do with each other. Chu Xiang also said that she wouldn't have any dealings with the Chu clan. Now that Insu helped the villagers get their money back and brought Chu Lan to justice, Chu Xiang didn't show any favoritism at all. It was obvious that she placed righteousness before family. This made everyone feel extremely grateful to Insu and Chu Xiang. Moreover, everyone discovered a very shocking thing through this incident. Insu, who had left their village, was actually able to get Chu Lan arrested and sent back as soon as she got out of the car. That was the capital. None of the villagers had ever left the provincial capital, let alone the capital. In their eyes, this place was like a divine altar. Insu actually completed the task that the brigade leader asked of him. This was simply beyond their imagination. Now Insu was an important figure in their hearts. He was a perfect match for Chu Xiang, who had been admitted to the military academy. They were a pair of golden phoenixes that would bring glory to their ancestors. This contrast highlighted Chu Lan's viciousness even more. The rumor of a lucky star and a jinx was once again dug up. However, this time, everyone was completely sure that Chu Xiang was the lucky star, while Chu Lan was the jinx that everyone feared. They weren't the only ones who thought this way. Even the Chu clan thought this way. Especially old Madame Chu. She cried and cursed endlessly at home. Chu Lan's parents were also implicated, and became the target of the entire family's condemnation. In the family, Chu Weiguo and Li Yuezhen were the angriest. Chu Xiang was their biological daughter. Chu Xiang was so promising. How glorious would it be to be an officer after being admitted to the military academy? In the past, they didn't take this too seriously because they valued boys over girls. However, things were different when they found out that Insu was also so promising. If it weren't for the jinx, wouldn't they be able to enjoy life in the capital now? The most important thing was that after Chu Lan's accident, the only child left in the family was Chu Xian. Chu Xian would be taking the college entrance examination in a year. If she didn't pass with poor grades, she would have to marry a wife. Now that her reputation was completely ruined by Chu Lan, how could Chu Xian have a good future? No one wanted her to find a job. Back then, when Chu Lan said that she could help Chu Xian by marrying Songyang to the provincial capital, they also believed it and agreed to give up Chu Xiang. In the end, they didn't get any benefits and even lost their own lives. They also cut off Chu Xiang's opportunity to enjoy life. They were so angry that they were about to die. Old Madame Chu said that the Chu family had become like this because of Chu Lan. She even said that it was Chu Lan's fault that they didn't have a son. In just a few months, Chu Lan had changed from the Chu family's hope to the most hated sinner in the Chu family. The Chu family wasn't willing to have nothing to do with Chu Xiang and Insu. They begged the brigade leader to help them contact Su. Of course, the brigade leader couldn't help them. However, old Madame Chu was ruthless and said that she wanted to kill herself in front of his house. He could only try to call Su. When he found out that Su and Chu Xiang had both gone to the army, he was really relieved. He wasn't afraid of the Chu family pestering him anymore. He was also sincerely happy for them. Being a soldier was a great honor. He really hoped that they would achieve something in the army. Old Madame Chu's pestering only resulted in this result. She wanted to go to the capital to find Yang Yuelan. However, the Chu family really didn't have any money. When Chu Lan left the village, the Chu family's expenses were all paid for by them. When it came to refunds to the villagers, the Chu family didn't have a share. The Chu family was so poor that they couldn't even afford to go to the capital. Moreover, when the brigade leader found out that Yang Yuelan lived alone, and Yin Xiuwen only went home on weekends, he refused to help the monks find out the Yin family's address. The Chu family was at their wits' end. Only then did they slowly stop. However, when they pestered the brigade leader, they all neglected Chu Xian. Chu Xian suddenly became sensitive. He was ridiculed and despised at school. When he returned to the village, he was pointed at. No one was willing to get close to him, as if he had some kind of infectious disease. Even the family members who doted on him the most were thinking about how to find Chu Xiang, and completely ignored him. He had never been ignored like this since he was young, and he had never been laughed at by so many people. His grades plummeted. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that he was at the bottom of the class. He often skipped classes to fool around outside. Soon he learned to smoke, drink, and fight. While the Chu family was still vexed over Chu Xiang's return, Chu Xian was already slowly walking down the wrong path. These things were passed on to the skinny monkey from his family members. Naturally, Chu Xiang also knew about it. As long as the Chu family didn't come to her, it had nothing to do with her. She just treated it as a joke. She had now successfully entered Su's army. She was specially recruited and could be considered a temporary worker. Su fully recommended and vouched for her in front of the brigade leader. Only then did the brigade leader make an exception and allow her to participate in the assessment in the army. Su brought her here to join the special operations team so that she could go on missions with him. Of course, such an important position couldn't be given to an outsider. After Chu Xiang arrived at the army, the brigade leader personally supervised the assessment. The reserve members of this team were the best of the best. They were carefully selected from the army. In order to convince the other soldiers, the brigade leader directly asked all the soldiers to come and watch. It was the most rigorous assessment. However, this was normal. If not, even if he was satisfied with Chu Xiang, the army wouldn't accept Chu Xiang. As the saying goes, if you're a mule or a horse, come out for a ride. If you want to have special privileges, you have to be prepared to be made difficult. This was only fair. The skinny monkey didn't return to the army. Li Dong applied to come back early to accompany Su and Chu Xiang back to the army. After knowing the brigade leader's arrangement, Li Dong felt a little embarrassed. After all, he was the one who pulled the strings. Now that Chu Xiang was being made difficult, he felt that he had to take some responsibility. He found Su and Chu Xiang. Sister-in-law, I'm sorry. Although the brigade leader's temper is usually bad, he doesn't like to make things difficult for people. I didn't expect. You just joined the army not long ago and haven't learned much. This assessment is too difficult for you. I'll ask the brigade leader again. Chu Xiang smiled. Thank you, instructor. But it's okay. I like this assessment very much. There's not much time. I don't have time to slowly prove my strength to everyone. This is the best way. I don't think he made things difficult for me. I think the brigade leader has helped me a lot. The brigade leader happened to come to see Su and heard this sentence at the door. He entered the door with his hands behind his back and looked at Chu Xiang. He nodded with satisfaction. Comrade Chu has a very high ideological awareness. It's good that she has this idea. Li, you should learn more from Chu. Why did she become so impatient after going to school? My decision is to be responsible for the mission, for the army, and for Chu's life. Do you understand? Do you think any random person can do it? If it weren't for you and In-soo, Chu wouldn't even be able to touch our door. You should be content. Chu Seong pulled out 2 stools for them. She glanced at In-soo, and In-soo went to make tea for the 2 of them. The brigade leader laughed and joked. It's obvious who's in charge of your family. In-soo, you're actually a rake. In-soo sat down calmly. Same here. This time it was Lee Dong's turn to laugh. The brigade leader snorted and took a sip of tea. He looked at In-soo and Chu Seong's expressions and said, You 2 can sit still. The assessment will start in 20 minutes. You're not nervous at all. Why are you so confident? In-soo said casually. If I wasn't confident, I wouldn't have recommended her to you. If I could only bring one person with me for this mission, I would choose Chu Seong without hesitation. She's very strong. Don't look at her. I'm afraid you'll make a fool of yourself. Oh, so strong? She makes you sound like a soldier. If you exaggerate, I'll punish you too. The brigade leader put down the teacup and stood up. He tidied his clothes and said, Let's go. Let me see how strong your wife is. Chapter 164. The soldiers in the army were already waiting at the training ground. They even diligently helped to set up the training props. The 1,000-meter-long test line was covered with layers of traps. There were 3-meter-high walls, a quagmire under the barbed wire, a single plank bridge as thin as an index finger, a suspension rope over a deep pit, and heavy sandbags, etc. These were all extremely difficult training exercises. Most of the people present couldn't pass them smoothly. This was for the training of elite soldiers. Only In-soo had passed it in one go. At the end of the test line, there were 2 live snakes and a particularly vicious dog. They were clearly trying to intimidate Chu Seong. Hey, you bunch of stinks. Lee Dong rolled up his sleeves and was about to step forward. Wasn't this bullying? In-soo raised his hand to stop Lee Dong and said calmly, Watch from the side. This is Chu Seong's test. Everyone saw In-soo's attitude and started to jeer. That's right. This is Chu Seong's test. Do you think she can get in through the back door just because she's your student? Don't call her by her name. This is your sister-in-law. Hello, sister-in-law. Brothers, please excuse us first. After all, the military camp is not your hometown. If you want to go on a mission, you have to show your true abilities. If you came with the army or to visit Brother Sue, we would definitely welcome you warmly. But since you're here for a mission today, we can't be polite. This is also for your sake. That's right, sister-in-law. We are training. The few people who are selected to participate in this mission are training nonstop. If you want to take one of the spots, you have to convince us, right? These people called Chu Seong's sister-in-law deliberately to let her know her identity. She was a soldier's family member in this army. They didn't approve of her, and especially didn't like her coming out of nowhere to take one of the spots. They were provoking her and trying to intimidate her. Chu Seong took off her jacket and handed it to In-soo. In-soo took it naturally and took 2 steps back. He didn't say anything. Everyone thought that In-soo would be angry, and they were all prepared to be taught a lesson by In-soo. Some of them even prepared to refute In-soo. However, In-soo acted as if this matter had nothing to do with him. Everyone felt as if they had punched cotton and could not help but look at each other. Chu Seong fastened her cuffs and smiled. Everyone is very enthusiastic. It's been hard on everyone to arrange so many things. After the assessment, I'll make something for everyone to eat to thank everyone for welcoming me. Then should we start now? Leader, should I go straight from here to the end? Do you have any other requirements? Chu Seong's arrogance caught everyone's attention. The leader put his hands behind his back and said, If you can get that flag in half an hour, you'll leave the school. Otherwise, you won't pass. You have to go back to school. Understood. Chu Seong took 2 steps forward and simply moved her wrists and ankles. She was ready to set off, but her expression was still indifferent, as if she didn't take Kaehan seriously. Everyone's attention was on her, and they couldn't help but whisper to each other. What is she doing? Is she giving up because she knows she can't do it? It must be. She's too relaxed. How can she do this? Didn't you hear that she's going to cook for us later? She'll probably just go through the motions and enter the kitchen. Isn't she the strongest in this batch of students? That can't be right. She was recommended by Brother Su and Brother Dong. I don't know. Anyway, I don't think highly of her. She really can't go on a mission like this. She'll be throwing her life away. She's messing around. Alright, let's wait for her cooking. When she admits defeat and gives up, we'll let it go. Give Brother Su some face and don't go overboard. I know. Look, she's starting. Chu Xiang had already trained her body to its peak condition. At this moment, she was mobilizing all the spiritual energy in her body. Every part of her body was strengthened to the extreme, ready to go. She suddenly rushed out. In that instant, her relaxed state changed. She became like a sharp blade, sharp and unsheathed, showing off its edge. Chu Xiang rushed to the front of the 3-meter-tall wall. With a few steps, she used the momentum to push herself up to the height of a person. She used her hands to push against the wall, and with a swing of her legs, she flipped over from the side and landed steadily. The whole process didn't even take 3 seconds. All the soldiers were dumbfounded. Chu Xiang didn't stop. She ran straight for the finger-thin single-plank bridge. She raised her hands slightly at her sides and ran quickly. She ran over steadily and quickly. She didn't even sway, let alone make a mistake. Chu Xiang ran on such a thin single-plank bridge like it was flat ground. Everyone was shocked. They all shut their mouths and stared at Chu Xiang. Chu Xiang was crawling forward in the quagmire. Her movements were not as standard as they were trained, but her speed was very fast. It was as if the low barbed wire and the mud below were not obstacles. The water in the quagmire seemed to be helping Chu Xiang, allowing her to move faster in the quagmire than on the ground. This was incredible. The regiment commander also became serious. He looked at Chu Xiang's performance seriously. Insu glanced at all the expressions on everyone's faces. He revealed a faint smile and looked at Chu Xiang with eyes full of smiles. This group of people looked at Chu Xiang. With Chu Xiang's personality, she wouldn't be so gentle. She would probably slap their faces swollen later. In just a few moments, Chu Xiang had passed through the quagmire. She carried the sandbag man covered in dirty water and rushed to the next checkpoint. The sandbag man weighed at least 200 kilograms. Because it was a dummy, it was much harder to carry than a real person of the same weight. Not only did Chu Xiang not slow down, she suddenly increased her speed. The 2 soldiers who were carrying the sandbag were stunned. Previously, they carried the sandbag man with 2 people, and it was very tiring. Chu Xiang actually carried the sandbag man and ran. Was she carrying cotton? What was even more surprising was that Chu Xiang could have passed the stage by herself. The sandbag man had to be put down before the rope to pass the stage. However, Chu Xiang had no intention of putting down the sandbag man. She tied the sandbag man with her sleeves. Just like that, the sandbag man climbed up the rope and slid out quickly. The rope slid very fast. With the additional weight of the sandbag man, Chu Xiang's speed became even faster. At the end, she couldn't stop at all. The end of this checkpoint was also one of the tests. Many soldiers couldn't help but worry. If she fell and got injured, it would be serious. However, just as they were worried, Chu Xiang suddenly straightened her back when she was about to reach the end. She lifted her feet and hooked them on the rope. She suddenly braked and perfectly stopped sliding and landed safely. She didn't even rest. She ran to the next checkpoint with the sandbag man on her back. Just like the 2 people before, everyone thought that she was carrying cotton when they saw her carrying the sandbag. She was too strong. Carrying a 200-kilogram sandbag man naturally increased the difficulty of the checkpoint. However, Chu Xiang wasn't affected at all. She smoothly and quickly passed the checkpoints one after another. Unexpectedly, she didn't get stuck at all. The audience was so silent that they could hear the sound of breathing. Everyone looked at Chu Xiang in disbelief. She was getting farther and farther away from them. They didn't follow her because it was too fast. They didn't even have time to react. Their minds were still in continuous amazement, and they hadn't digested this fact at all. Chu Xiang passed through the checkpoints without stopping all the way. Finally, she reached the last checkpoint, where she faced the fierce dog and 2 snakes. Chu Xiang's body was emitting spiritual power. Which animal would attack her? They couldn't wait to stay by her side and be nourished. So a magical scene appeared. Chu Xiang put down the sandbag man and sat next to the dog, wiping her sweat. The soldier who raised the dog immediately exclaimed, "Chu Xiang, watch out." But the dog attack that everyone expected didn't happen. The dog obediently lay down next to Chu Xiang. It also obediently put its head on Chu Xiang's leg. The dog's ears were slightly back and its tail was wagging, as if it was acting coquettishly, waiting for its owner to smooth its hair. Then the two snakes slowly crawled over. Chu Xiang was still sitting there, and the dog didn't make a sound to warn her. Seeing that the two snakes were about to crawl behind Chu Xiang, someone couldn't help but shout, "Chu Xiang, hide!" "Snake!" Chu Xiang turned around to take a look. Her body did not move at all. Everyone was worried for her. Although the snake wasn't poisonous, it hurt enough to be bitten. Everyone couldn't understand why Chu Xiang didn't hide. Even the leader frowned and looked at Yin Su. "What are you doing? Why don't you save her?" Yin Su snorted and said, "If you really meet a poisonous snake, wait for her to save you." As soon as his voice fell, everyone saw the two snakes lying on the other side of Chu Xiang. They coexisted peacefully with the dog, as if they were both Chu Xiang's pets. Chu Xiang reached out and took the red flag, waved it at them, and then leisurely tidied up her hair and clothes. The atmosphere instantly changed from tense and exciting to relaxed and comfortable. But only a few minutes had passed. Chu Xiang passed the checkpoint? The leader only found out that Chu Xiang had passed the checkpoint. He looked at Yin Su in disbelief. "Finished? She broke your record." Yin Su shrugged. "It's too early. She's very strong. Leader, there's always someone better than you. Don't underestimate others. If Chu Xiang is the enemy, everyone here will die miserably today." This was a piece of advice, but also a bit of dissatisfaction. Not only was the leader not angry, but he also laughed happily. "Chu Li, you've married a good wife. You deserve it. It turns out that you can't beat her. Ha ha ha, with Chu joining us, you'll be like a tiger with wings." The others also reacted and immediately ran over excitedly to surround Chu Xiang. "Sister-in-law, you're so awesome. How did you do it? You're at the level of a soldier king." "Sister Xiang, the way you crawled forward just now was too fast. Can you teach me how to do it? Your skills are faster than any of us who trained." "Sister Xiang, why didn't they bite you? Why are they so obedient? It's as if they're your pets. It's too amazing." Chu Xiang smiled and touched the evil dogs' heads. She said leisurely, They're very docile in front of me. Maybe it's because I have a good relationship with animals. They've always been like this." She paused and looked at them. "As for how I passed the checkpoint so quickly, it's also because of my talent. You have to know that some people are born stronger than others. They can win opportunities with their strength wherever they go. This is something that others can't catch up to." The soldiers who had thought that Chu Xiang was very gentle were stunned. Why did she attack them without saying anything? Was she using her talent to mock them? What did they say to Chu Xiang a few minutes ago? Oh no, their faces hurt. "Sister Xiang. We didn't recognize Mount Tai. Can you teach us?" Chapter 165. Everyone looked at Chu Xiang eagerly, waiting for her answer. Chu Xiang stood up and dusted off the dirt on her hands. She thought for a moment and said, "Well, I don't mind teaching you guys, but isn't this mission very important? If I'm not careful, I might lose my life. I'd better train diligently and give myself an extra layer of protection. I'll leave the rest for later." She walked towards Yin Su under everyone's disappointed gazes. "Where's the cookhouse? I'll make something for everyone to eat." Someone immediately said, No need. Sister Xiang, you've worked so hard for the assessment. Go and rest. You don't have to take care of us." Chu Xiang turned around and glanced at them. "How can I do that? I'm going to cook for everyone. I have to show my sincerity, right? Otherwise, how can I live up to everyone's enthusiasm? Is the regiment commander free? You're coming too?" The regiment commander wanted to have a good chat with her. He nodded and said, "These people eat like animals. Chu, you should cook more. Let's go to the cafeteria." Oh, let's go to the cafeteria. Everyone's attitude towards Chu Xiang was much better after witnessing her abilities. She was so gentle and kind. Although she had just dissed them, she still wanted to cook for them. This sister-in-law was simply too good. Everyone was very happy. While they were going to the cafeteria, Chu Xiang ran to take a shower and changed into a camouflage uniform. Then she dove into the kitchen to make a big pot of dumpling soup. The soldiers who thought she was going to make delicious food were a little disappointed. However, they soon smelled the enticing aroma. A few soldiers even sniffed the aroma and had expectant expressions. Brother Su, sister-in-law's dumpling soup smells so good. Is sister-in-law's cooking good? In-su held a teacup and drank some water. He slowly said, Chu Xiang's cooking is the best I've ever eaten in my life. Oh, Brother Su is saying sweet nothings. Sister-in-law, Brother Su is saying nice things to you. No one had expected that In-su, who had always been serious in the army, would say such a thing. He was simply too spoiled. Everyone immediately started laughing. Chu Xiang looked out of the kitchen window and smiled at them. A soldier sighed and said, Sister-in-law, you're so nice. We're going to have a good meal in the future. It's so fragrant. It'll definitely be delicious. Their impression of Chu Xiang was getting better and better. Their impression of Chu Xiang was also getting better and better. Even Regiment Commander Lien smiled and praised. In-su, where did you find such a treasure? Not bad. It seems like you made the right decision to retire. In-su looked at Chu Xiang and smiled mysteriously. He nodded and said, She is indeed a treasure. She makes all the decisions in our family. You will know later. Brother Su, you can't do that. You're too henpecked. Everyone laughed and teased In-su. Not long after, someone from the cookhouse came to serve the soup. The fragrance was so alluring that people couldn't help but drool. It smelled, and looked very exquisite. In-su could see from their eyes that they were looking forward to the food. It was indeed fragrant. However, when Li Dong served it to him, he rejected it. I always eat it at home. You guys can have a taste this time. Thank you for your warm hospitality to Chu Xiang today. Yes. Thank you for your warm welcome. Hurry up and eat. Eat more. Don't waste food. Chu Xiang also walked over with a harmless smile. Everyone blew on the soup and took a big gulp. As soon as the soup entered their mouths, everyone's expectant expression immediately became indescribable. Sweet. Too sweet. So sweet that it was scary. The problem was that even though it was very sweet, they could still taste the fragrance of the soup. That was to say, everyone clearly knew that if Chu Xiang didn't mix in sugar with salt, this soup would definitely be a top-notch delicacy. A little sugar ruined a top-notch delicacy. They were so close to eating a top-notch delicacy. This huge gap made everyone feel a sense of regret and disappointment. Chu Xiang smiled and asked, Is it good? The leader frowned and said, Chu, did you mistake sugar for salt? It's so sweet. What's wrong? Chu Xiang showed a surprised expression. You guys don't like it? Oh, I thought that since everyone is so happy, they should eat something sweet. I didn't expect that everyone doesn't like it. It seems that if there's anything, we should inform them in advance. Don't make decisions on your own and cause trouble for others. The leader coughed. Chu, are you implying something? Do you have any opinions or misunderstandings about everyone? Chu Xiang smiled and said, How is that possible? I like everyone very much. I even want to compare notes with you guys. This little bit of sugar can replenish everyone's strength. Let's compare notes later. I think this place is much more interesting than school. Leader, don't worry. I like this way of communication very much. Everyone looked at her. They didn't believe a single word she said. They finally knew what it meant to be a smiling tiger. This was what it meant to do everything unknowingly with a smile on his face. They thought that their sister-in-law had a good temper, gentle and kind before. It turned out that she was tricking them. It was so tempting and fragrant that it made their cravings come out. In the end, they were forced to drink something so sweet. They couldn't waste food, so they could only bite the bullet and drink it. It was too uncomfortable. The key point was that they were the ones who made things difficult for others first. They didn't even dare to resist. At this moment, they also realized that In-su wasn't afraid of his wife. He was just being honest. No wonder he didn't eat a single bite. It turned out that he already expected that Chu Xiang would get back at him. The leader looked at the bowl and shook his head. He scolded with a smile and drank it all in one breath. Everyone did the same. Although they seemed to be teased by Chu Xiang, this was how relationships were formed in the military camp. After such a thing happened, everyone admired Chu Xiang even more. Because she didn't resign herself to adversity. She had her own temper and personality. Soldiers all admired the strong. Chu Xiang taught them a lesson without batting an eyelid. She was a kind of strong person. Chu Xiang saw that everyone was almost done eating, so she suggested, "It's still bright. Why don't we take the marksmanship test today? I heard that in Su there are 2 sharpshooters in our unit. I wonder if we can take a look today." "Sure, let's go." Soldiers always got excited easily. Everyone saw that Chu Xiang wanted to challenge them and immediately became energetic. Although they weren't elite soldiers, they were still elites. They didn't want to lose. The leader looked at Yin Su. "Chu Xiang's marksmanship is very good? It should be better than what you know." Yin Su shrugged. "But I've never seen her shoot, so I'm not too sure." "Brat, you're still beating around the bush with me. How dare you recommend her when you don't know?" "Oh, so you know that I recommended her because she's good enough? Then your show of strength wasn't very good. Go go go. What do you know? Without this show of strength, who would approve of her? Let's go and see how good Chu Xiang is." Chu Xiang didn't have any formal training, but her marksmanship was trained in the post-apocalyptic world in her previous life. It was a real life and death battle. It was purely honed from battle. Chu Xiang arrived at the shooting range and fiddled with a gun in her hand. Liang Jie, who was familiar with the sharpshooter in the Shofu unit, took the initiative to pick up another gun. "Sister Xiang, I'll go first?" Chu Xiang gestured for him to go first and stood at the side with a smile. Her posture was so relaxed that people couldn't help but think of her leisurely attitude before the test. They didn't know if she would have an amazing performance again. Liang Jie held a gun in one hand and a gun in the other. He quickly aimed and fired 3 shots without thinking. All 3 shots hit the center of the 10th ring. The bullets went through the same hole. Everyone immediately clapped and whistled, cheering. Without waiting for them to calm down, Chu Xiang casually raised one hand and fired 3 shots. They also hit the same hole. Unlike Liang Jie, her shot was very accurate. She truly achieved 0 error shooting. Liang Jie was stunned and said unwillingly, "Do you want to shoot while moving?" Chu Xiang nodded and said, "Let's do it. It's rare for everyone to play together. It's more interesting to play more tricks." Liang Jie immediately arranged for people to arrange. He was called a sharpshooter, so his marksmanship was naturally very good. He shot the moving sign at the heart of the sign. As usual, Chu Xiang casually fired a shot, hitting the center of the humanoid standing tablet's forehead. She also fired 2 consecutive shots and 3 consecutive shots. They all hit the forehead. She could hit the same spot on the moving sign. This was simply too amazing. Liang Jie was in disbelief and worship. He excitedly said, "Sister Xiang, how did you do it?" Chu Xiang touched the gun in her hand and said with a smile, "I didn't practice for long. Maybe it's still fu." She could even hit a level 5 zombie that was running away at high speed. What was a standing sign? The other sharpshooter was also very excited. He strode forward to compete with Chu Xiang. Of course, the result was that he lost miserably. Chu Xiang had never lost a shooting competition before. The marksmanship test did not require anything else. Chu Xiang was the real sharpshooter. After the marksmanship test, Chu Xiang called them to the training ground to learn from each other. This kind of learning from each other was of course the most lively. Moreover, Chu Xiang's performance was too amazing. It was inevitable that the soldiers in the army would be competitive. They hoped that they could beat her in at least one aspect. However, when it came to fighting, Chu Xiang not only knew the moves that she learned in the apocalypse, but also the moves that she combined with various martial arts. How could these people in the army compare to her? Thus, a strange phenomenon occurred in the training ground. Chu Xiang, this new recruit, beat them to a pulp. Sometimes, they did not even see how Chu Xiang moved and her opponent had already fallen. At the beginning, everyone became more and more hot-blooded. One by one, they rushed up to challenge Chu Xiang. Later, they were all listless. They were really beaten too badly. They could not find any flaws at all. Now they were really sober, gentle and kind. Good sister-in-law. Chu Xiang was too strong. This was her revenge for making things difficult for them before. However, everyone was very excited. They were excited to have such a strong comrade. The stronger Chu Xiang was, the more they liked it. Furthermore, Chu Xiang's magnanimous and clear revenge was actually very much to their liking. This clearly showed that Chu Xiang did not really mind. She was using their method to get closer to them. After being beaten like this, they really completely accepted Chu Xiang. There was no longer a trace of doubt. The regiment commander was the most optimistic. He patted Yin Su and sighed. It's good that you came back this time. With you and Chu Xiang, this mission is more assured. However, it's very dangerous. Don't be careless. You must come back in one piece. This meant that he agreed to let Chu Xiang and Yin Su do the mission together. This was the biggest recognition. Yin Su said confidently, "You can prepare a celebratory feast for us when we come back." Chapter 166. No one had expected that Chu Xiang would be recognized by everyone as soon as she joined the team. No one, including Yin Su, had expected that she would be able to blend in with everyone so quickly and completely integrate into their team. Early the next morning, Li Dong called Chu Xiang and Yin Su for a meeting. There were only 4 people in the mission team: Chu Xiang, Yin Su, Li Dong, and Liang Jie. This was a secret mission. Other than the 4 of them and the regiment commander, no one else knew about the mission. The regiment commander had told them clearly and sternly that they must not be careless, and that they must return safely. The 4 of them went to a secret base for 5 days of high-intensity training to cultivate chemistry. After passing the chemistry test, they set off immediately. No one knew where they had gone. Even their files had been specially kept. If they disappeared without a trace, their files would be destroyed. The 4 of them wore casual clothes and drove to their destination, Yasin City. Chu Xiang sat in the back seat and put on Yin Su's makeup. Yin Su dodged uncomfortably. "Are you done? I've been doing it for a long time." Chu Xiang pinched his chin and held it in place. "Don't move. It'll be done soon. Do it carefully so that you won't be exposed." Yin Su sat there stiffly. Li Dong and Liang Jie, who were sitting in the front seat, glanced at him from the rearview mirror from time to time. Yin Su couldn't help but ask, "What are you looking at?" Li Dong coughed lightly. "Nothing, it's just that. Sister Xiang is awesome." Liang Jie nodded vigorously. "Yeah, awesome." Yin Su was puzzled. He asked them, but they didn't know. Chu Xiang ignored him completely. It was as though she was treating his face as a canvas. She was busy. After waiting for another 5 minutes, Chu Xiang finally let go of him. She looked at his face and said with satisfaction, "Not bad, you look quite handsome in your new look." Yin Su grabbed the mirror from her bag and was stunned when he saw his own face. "This is me? How did I change my appearance?" Li Dong said excitedly, "Sister Xiang is awesome. How is this makeup? This is a disguise, right? Sister Xiang, how did you do it? Can you teach me?" Liang Jie chuckled. "You're so lousy and you still want to learn makeup? Sister Xiang, why don't you teach me spear techniques? I'm good at this. How about I take you as my master? I definitely won't embarrass you." "Yo, I'm Sister Xiang's instructor. Are you trying to call me your ancestor?" "Ha ha ha." Li Dong laughed so hard that his eyes narrowed. Yin Su patted him on the shoulder. "Drive carefully and be careful." Chu Xiang had already finished putting on her makeup while they were talking. No one in Yasiana City knew her. All she needed to do was to fit her identity and image. She was dressed to look domineering. Yin Su looked at her and then at the mirror. "Why do I feel like something is wrong? Aren't you pretending to be a businessman? Boss?" Chu Xiang packed her makeup bag and said, "Yes, I'm the boss." "You're the boss?" The 3 men in the car asked in unison, all looking at her. Chu Xiang smiled and said, "Do you have any business experience?" Although I don't have one, I do read a lot of books. When I was in school, I read a lot of books and learned a lot of things. You just need to support me. Don't talk nonsense. Insu shrugged and closed his eyes to rest. Let's go if you're confident. Insu's identity was Chu Xiang's cousin and assistant. Li Dong was the driver and Liang Jie was the bodyguard. On the surface, they were here to discuss a big business deal with someone called Old K, but in reality, they were here to find evidence that Old K was a spy and get the list of evidence. Old K was a crafty rabbit with 3 burrows. They weren't sure where his base was in Yasiana City, and could only confirm the location of a factory. Insu had accidentally seen it when he was out on a mission, and escaped after being shot. Fortunately, it wasn't a vital point. Insu and Chu Xiang reviewed Old K's information. He's the biggest drug dealer in the country and handles 70% of the drugs in the country. He's a Japanese and has lived in Hua Nation since he was a child. He has an organization that secretly sends important information about our country to the Japanese. He also uses drugs to control the information channels of some influential people. He's cautious, suspicious, and fickle. Chu Xiang held her chin and looked at the scenery outside the window. She said with interest, "This Old K is quite capable." Li Dong looked at her from the rearview mirror and said in surprise, "Sister Xiang, you're not like this in school. Why do I feel like you're very excited? Old K isn't a joke. Coming into contact with him is a dangerous mission. It's your first mission and it's already so dangerous. It'll be very difficult to complete." Chu Xiang chuckled. The school is a place to cultivate the flowers of the motherland. Of course, I have to restrain myself. It's different when I'm out on a mission. Of course, I can play however I want. Li Dong still couldn't accept it. You've changed too much. I even suspect that I'm not your instructor and that you're my instructor. Insu looked down and suddenly asked, "You don't seem like a girl who just left home. Instead, you seem like a soldier who's been on many missions. Where did you learn it?" Of course, it was impossible for the original owner to be so powerful, but there were all kinds of strange things in the world. Who couldn't become an elite soldier with the original owner's identity? Otherwise, where did all those legendary people come from? Chu Xiang was experienced and knowledgeable. She knew that even the most miraculous things could come true. So she calmly replied, "Talent." This was an answer that couldn't be refuted. She had entered the school and learned the corresponding things. So what if she learned quickly because of her talent? She just practiced shooting with a gun and became a sharpshooter. So what? It was just like how she could cook well. She clearly didn't cook many meals in the Chu family, so how did she become a good cook? It must be her talent. There was no other explanation. Insu suddenly understood. Chu Xiang married him not only to get rid of the entanglement of the Chu family, but also to get rid of the suspicion of being a spy. No matter what talent Chu Xiang had, if she was different from ordinary people, she would inevitably be noticed in this sensitive era. Some people were lucky enough to be investigated and incorporated into the government. However, most of them were directly eradicated by the leaders below them. It was better to kill the wrong person than to let them go. The more remote the place, the more difficult it was to seek redress. If Chu Xiang didn't want to be targeted, she couldn't expose her talent. She could only reluctantly be an ordinary person and wouldn't have a chance to shine. But it was different if she married him. He was a soldier, so she was a soldier's family. Their composition was good. He was an elite soldier. If she improved quickly, it wouldn't be easy for others to suspect her. Others would only think that he had taught her a lot. Insu suddenly suspected that Chu Xiang's request to join the army was intentional. She wanted to become a soldier in the army and perform meritorious deeds. After taking this step, Chu Xiang would have completely completed a perfect transformation. Moreover, no one would suspect her background because his recommendation was equivalent to a guarantee. It would be very easy for her to gain Birau's trust. Insu rubbed his temples hard. He felt as if he had figured out all the key points. Chu Xiang only did things for 2 purposes. One was to make herself happy, and the other was to realize her ideas. Chu Xiang probably cooked at home, because she didn't think their cooking was delicious. She was kind to her mother-in-law and sister-in-law for the sake of family harmony. She wanted them to be on the same side as her, and quickly changed the views of the whole village. Facts proved that it was very successful. Chu Xiang looked at him strangely. What are you thinking about? You're so deep. Insu shook his head. I'm thinking if you can be deep. Yes, if I'm not scheming, wouldn't I be silly and sweet? What's silly and sweet? Chu Xiang inadvertently gave him a term from the future. After thinking for a while, she explained to him. It's a silly and real ordinary person. Insu didn't know where she got this term from. He touched his chin and said, Don't use this kind of uncommon term in front of old K. He will suspect that we are giving him a secret signal. He would rather kill us than take the risk. Don't worry. Chu Xiang looked outside. It felt a bit like the end of the world. At that time, they also went out to do missions as a team. But at that time, they were mostly fighting and killing. This time they still needed to pretend to be polite to old K. But in terms of acting, she would be the person she wanted to be. She didn't believe that old K would be able to see through her. When they were about to arrive, Insu whispered, Don't hide any weapons on you. Chu Xiang nodded. She had a warehouse of weapons in her space. It was certain that she would carry them with her, but that was the safest place. No one could find them. This time, she would rely on her space to complete the mission. Li Dong stopped the car. Chu Xiang saw the enemy with guns outside the window. The mission began. Chapter 167. Ha ha ha, brother. You've made Uncle Chai wait for quite a while. You're a big boss. As soon as Insu got out of the car, a bald man wearing a gold necklace came up to him and wanted to shake his hand. Insu shook his hand briefly and said apologetically, I'm really sorry. There was a problem with the car on the way here. I'm not a big boss. I'm just my boss's assistant. I'll ask my boss to come down. Insu quickly walked to the other side of the car and opened the door. He held out his hand for Chu Xiang to hold his wrist and get out of the car. Li Dong and Liang Jie also got out of the car and stood on both sides of the car to watch Chu Xiang. The three men's actions made Chu Xiang's appearance particularly eye-catching. The bald man scratched his head in surprise. Brother, are you kidding? Is this your boss? A woman. Liang Jie played the role of a bodyguard dutifully. As soon as he heard the bald man's tone, he immediately stood in front of him and stared at him coldly. Be more respectful. Oh, really? The bald man's eyes darted between them and laughed. He held out his hand to Chu Xiang. I'm Jinzei. How should I address this lady boss? Chu Xiang smiled faintly. Boss Lin. Her fingers just touched Jinzei's hand when she retracted them. She raised her head slightly with some arrogance. Where is Uncle Chai? Insu added. Sorry, Sister Xiang has an appointment with someone later. She doesn't have much time to stay here. We hope to conclude this cooperation as soon as possible. Jinzei wasn't displeased. Instead, he felt that Chu Xiang was full of confidence. He made an inviting gesture and said, Boss Lin, please. Uncle Chai is inside. Our Uncle Chai has always been hospitable. This time, we'll let Boss Lin experience our local customs. Chu Xiang stepped forward and lowered her head to adjust her gloves as she walked. She said coldly, I only care about business. I don't want to talk about anything else. Jinzei replied in a neutral tone, Of course. I hope Boss Lin won't disappoint us. The few of them entered a courtyard with high walls. Behind the heavy door were 2 rows of serious private soldiers armed with assault rifles. With Chu Xiang on his back, Jinzei signaled one of them with his eyes. Immediately, a fugitive rushed out and was shot dead by a private soldier. Jinzei secretly glanced at Chu Xiang's expression and found that Chu Xiang was very indifferent to this, as if she was used to it, and there was nothing new about it. He relaxed a little and smiled. I'm sorry, it's a family matter. I've made a fool of myself in front of you. Chu Xiang only raised her hand in response. Insu's expression was the same as usual. Li Dong and Liang Jie tried their best to keep their eyes straight, but their hearts were like boiling water. They didn't know how to react when a life disappeared in front of them, but their hearts were filled with anger. They wanted nothing more than to kill them all. After passing through an arched door and a long corridor, a two-story building appeared before their eyes. At first glance, the building didn't look like a very ordinary house. However, upon closer inspection, the walls, doors, and windows weren't simple. It wasn't any worse than an air raid shelter. The door opened from the inside and Jinze said loudly, "Uncle Chai, Boss Lin is here." They had already entered the building. A skinny old man in a Chinese tunic suit was sitting on a wooden sofa reading a newspaper. Hearing this, he looked up and smiled. "You're here? This place is a little remote. It's not easy to find you, right?" Uncle Chai wore gold-rimmed glasses. His hair was neat, and his smile was kind. Anyone who saw him would think that he was a kind old man. He didn't look like a spy or a drug lord at all. Chu Xiang raised her eyebrows slightly and looked at Jinze. "Is this really Uncle Chai?" Jinze laughed. "How is it? Aren't you startled? Our Uncle Chai is a refined person." Uncle Chai smiled. "Boss Lin, have a seat. You've come from afar. Try our local specialties. Let's talk slowly and be friends. There's no need to make it so formal." "Sure. I like to talk business with refined people." Chu Xiang smiled and shook hands with Uncle Chai. She then sat down on the sofa opposite him. Yin Su stood beside her, while Li Dong and Liang Jie stood behind her to protect her from all sides. Chu Xiang glanced around as she served the tea. She had a panoramic view of all the possible threats in the room. There were 5 men and women dressed as servants. They all had weapons hidden on their bodies and were positioned in an ingenious manner. They could protect Uncle Chai or attack them at any time. Chu Xiang and the others were here because the military had secretly captured an important person. Through this person, they were able to establish a connection with Uncle Chai. Hence, they could be considered acquaintances. However, since it was their first meeting, it was necessary for them to test each other. Uncle Chai chuckled and chatted with Chu Xiang. He kept beating around the bush and didn't talk about the main topic. However, he was skillful at it. He tried to sound out Chu Xiang's words without leaving a trace. Li Dong and Liang Jie didn't have much experience as spies. When they heard Uncle Chai's questions, they were so nervous that their hearts pounded violently. Yin Su had fought with Uncle Chai before, so he was unusually calm. He smiled faintly and helped Chu Xiang out of her predicament. However, after he helped her answer twice, he realized that Chu Xiang didn't need anyone to help her. She could answer any question perfectly. She could even casually talk about their identities and experiences. These were things that they hadn't discussed before. Moreover, she didn't make any mistakes. When put together, it was a complete picture of their lives. The problem was that all of this was fake. How did she make it up in the blink of an eye and remember it so clearly? Li Dong and Liang Jie were stunned. Fortunately, they were well-trained and didn't give themselves away. Yin Su felt relieved and began to cooperate with Chu Xiang. His confidence in this mission was greatly boosted. Chu Xiang played the game with Uncle Chai for a while. Not only did she defend herself, but she also threw out many questions to get information from Uncle Chai. However, Uncle Chai avoided all of them. After more than 10 minutes, both of them only got a little useful information. Chu Xiang was slightly better than Uncle Chai, which surprised him. They each took a sip of tea. The way Uncle Chai looked at Chu Xiang had completely changed. He was old and experienced. He had been an elite among his peers since he was young. He had been trained to be a spy. It was the first time that he had met someone like Chu Xiang who could get information from him. He valued Chu Xiang more and more. However, he was even more confused. Why hadn't he heard of such an outstanding person before? Uncle Chai glanced at Jinze. Jinze smiled knowingly and said, "Boss Lin is really a heroine. I admire her. If I had met Boss Lin earlier, we would have been close partners. Why didn't Boss Lin do anything before? It's such a pity that we missed it for so long." Chu Xiang held the teacup and lowered her eyes. She didn't talk to Uncle Chai's men. Yin Su smiled and said, 2 years ago, the country was very strict. It was easier for men to move around. However, if a woman did something out of line, she would be the center of attention. Therefore, Sister Xiang was in charge of planning for the past few years. Only Brother Chen knew about this. Now that the era is better, it's time for Sister Xiang to take over. Nowadays, Women were supposed to do laundry, cook, and take care of children. If they went out in public, they would be pointed at. Gangsters were more sensitive. What could they do if they were noticed? Wouldn't they be waiting to be caught? This explanation was quite reasonable. Even if Chu Xiang was the boss now, it would still be surprising. Uncle Chai accepted this explanation and laughed. Women can do half the work. That's right. Times have changed. Chu Xiang looked up and said, as long as Uncle Chai doesn't refuse to work with me because of this, I want to play a big game and go to my rightful position. Since Uncle Chai has helped me, I will naturally repay your kindness. I just don't know if Uncle Chai is interested. Uncle Chai smiled and nodded. Boss Lin, you are ambitious. No one wants to be a nobody. If you have the ability, you should let others know. I have always liked to help young people. After all, I am old. Sooner or later, this business will be handed over to you young people. However, you have to be able to handle it. If you make a mistake, you will be executed. Chu Xiang leaned back on the sofa lazily and smiled confidently. I am here to discuss business. If Uncle Chai has any concerns, we should discuss them clearly. Since I dared to come, I am confident. Uncle Chai, why don't you listen to my plan? Oh, I'm all ears. Uncle Chai held his walking stick in front of him and gestured for Chu Xiang to come up with a plan. Li Dong and Liang Jie blinked a little faster. Their hearts were in their throats. What plan? Where was the plan? What was she doing? Yin Su leaned forward and poured tea for Chu Xiang and Uncle Chai. When he served tea to Chu Xiang, he asked with a smile, Sister Xiang, are you tired of talking so much? Do you want me to introduce our plan to Uncle Chai? Chu Xiang raised her hand. No, it's rare that I hit it off with Uncle Chai. I will introduce it to Uncle Chai personally. Yin Su knew that Chu Xiang knew what she was doing. He quietly played the role of an assistant and let Chu Xiang do whatever she wanted. He was a little worried about the mission. After all, it was very important. However, he trusted Chu Xiang very much. He did not doubt that Chu Xiang would screw up the mission. He thought that this trust came from the time they spent together after getting married. He suddenly felt funny. Now, did they also follow the woman's lead? Yin Su, Li Dong, and Liang Jie listened to Chu Xiang calmly talk about their plan. She talked about how to get the goods, how to arrange how many people to receive them, how to transfer them, how to hide them, how to sell them, how to maximize profits, how to make a name for themselves, and so on. An unusually complete plan was presented in front of them. It was as if Chu Xiang had been planning it for a whole year. The most amazing thing was that Chu Xiang seemed to have done nothing when she talked about the whole plan. Uncle Chai knew her plan, but he could not figure out her specific arrangements at all. He could not understand the details. Chu Xiang sat there, as if she was really a leader who had been hiding in the dark for many years. She knew how to do business, how to deal with traders, and how to use underhanded methods. She chatted happily with Uncle Chai, as if they were friends despite the difference in age. Li Dong and Liang Jie felt their scalps tingle. They even had goosebumps. If Chu Xiang was really the leader behind this, they were not confident that they could catch her. Chu Xiang had no idea how much of a shock she had brought to them. When she felt that the time was right, she brought up the cooperation again. Uncle Chai, I think that's enough to show my sincerity. If Uncle Chai doesn't want to cooperate with me, then I won't stay any longer. Time is precious. I don't think we want to waste Peter's time. Haha, I like Boss Lin's character. You are straightforward and straightforward. Uncle Chai knocked on the ground with his cane and said happily, Okay, I'll make friends with you today. Chapter 168. When Uncle Chai said make friends, he was not really making friends. It was just a signal to agree to their cooperation. Uncle Chai wanted to test Chu Xiang, but it was not difficult for Chu Xiang at all. She had transmigrated so many times, and each time, her different experiences had given her a perfect outer shell. As long as she wanted to, everyone could only see the side of her that she wanted to show. She was good at business and acting. She had just experienced bloody battles in her previous life, and conspiracies were instinctive to her. Chu Xiang was invincible in front of Uncle Chai. Even though Uncle Chai had been a spy his whole life, Chu Xiang could be his grandmaster in this aspect. They agreed on the amount of the deal and the details of the cooperation on the spot. The whole process seemed to be a competition between the two of them. However, from the perspective of Chu Xiang, who was a spy, she was in control of the rhythm and skillfully guided the whole deal. Li Dong and Liang Jia were already numb from the shock. They admired Chu Xiang from the bottom of their hearts. Thinking about how those soldiers in the barracks had once tried to intimidate Chu Xiang, they couldn't bear to think about what they would experience in the future. In any case, the two of them were completely convinced. They were willing to call Chu Xiang Sister Xiang at any time. It had nothing to do with Yin Su. It was purely because of Chu Xiang's personal charm that they were conquered. Yin Su followed Chu Xiang around the whole time and played the role of an assistant dutifully. He looked like a gentle person without any fighting spirit. Because he had lived with Chu Xiang for a long time, he knew Chu Xiang's living habits very well. He took care of the details very well, which was very suitable for his identity. This made the cautious Jin Zhe even more certain that they were real. The two of them successfully negotiated the cooperation. The banquet was full of laughter, acrobatics, and singing to add to the fun. Slowly, the content of their conversation began to involve connections. Uncle Chai's people began to test Chu Xiang to see if she knew any important people. Uncle Chai was a spy. The most important job of a spy was to know important information about China in advance. Where did this information come from? Apart from the people who had gone offline, there were also all kinds of connections. Through this extremely huge network of connections, they were able to obtain the latest news. Chu Xiang calmly mentioned a few names in a seemingly unintentional manner. She told him half-true and half-false stories about her dealings with them. It seemed that she was just chatting, but it made Li Dong break out in cold sweat. These people were all important figures in Hua Nation. Chu Xiang really dared to make it up. She even made it up as if it was real. Uncle Chai was both surprised and pleasantly surprised. These were the people he had been trying to infiltrate, but couldn't find a way to do so. Right now, Chu Xiang was a great partner to work with. Through Chu Xiang, they were able to obtain information about these people. It was simply a blessing. Uncle Chai had been cautious all his life. The more successful something was, the more suspicious he would be. He joked, "I can't believe that after living for so long, I still have the chance to meet a friend like you. My luck is so good that it's like a dream. It's so unreal." Chu Xiang smiled calmly. "Ever since I can remember, people have always said that I'm lucky, and that I'm the reincarnation of a lucky star. But I don't believe that. I only believe in myself. I've worked hard for everything I have today. If it weren't for the years I've accumulated, I wouldn't have had the chance to meet you today. If it weren't for the power I've built over the years, I wouldn't have been able to do anything even if I met you. So being lucky doesn't mean anything. You have to accumulate enough and seize that little bit of luck to succeed. Uncle Chai, if you weren't famous enough, I wouldn't have come, right?" Uncle Chai laughed and patted her shoulder. "Boss Lin, you're really interesting. Maybe you really are the reincarnation of a lucky star. If that's the case, our cooperation will be foolproof." Uncle Chai was conceited about his achievements in this life. However, he was too cautious to show it. Chu Xiang's words could be said to have hit the bottom of his heart, making him burst with joy. Why would he suspect that things were going too smoothly? Things were going so smoothly because of his decades of accumulation. Whether it was in terms of strength, wealth, or status, he was at the top of the industry. Things were going so smoothly because he had given Chu Xiang a chance. Those that he had rejected were all unsuccessful. Looking at it this way, the probability of success was really low. Moreover, he had seen a lot of things in his life and believed in luck. The life of a modern woman was indeed difficult. Chu Xiang was able to make all her subordinates submit to her. She was also able to gain so much power at such a young age. She must have been very lucky. If they could successfully complete the cooperation, Chu Xiang could become an important long-term partner of his. Over the course of the meal, the two sides continued to test each other, and on the surface, the banquet ended in a happy and harmonious manner. However, the testing would not stop just because they were satisfied. When they arrived at her place, Chu Xiang saw a man with red lips and white teeth in her room. He was one of the singers at the banquet. Chu Xiang had praised him as good-looking. Chu Xiang stood at the door and looked at the man. In Su's expression became calm. He looked at Jin Zhe and waited for him to explain. Jin Zhe smiled. Boss Lin, you must be tired after such a long journey and chatting with Uncle Chai the whole afternoon. Lin Lang is the best at massaging. Let him help you relax and you can have a good night's sleep, right? If he doesn't serve you well, you can throw him out at any time. The man named Lin Lang got up and walked over. He smiled and greeted Chu Xiang. His every move exuded a masculine charm. Boss Lin, nice to meet you. I will definitely let you have a relaxing night. You. Xiang doesn't need it. Insu interrupted him forcefully. He stepped forward and put his arm around Chu Xiang's waist. He turned to Jin Zhe and said coldly, our boss is not used to strangers approaching her. We appreciate your kindness. It's getting late. You should rest early. Then he led Chu Xiang into the room. He forced Lin Lang out of the door with an oppressive look and locked the door in front of them. Chu Xiang didn't stop him at all. The last thing they saw through the door was Chu Xiang taking off her coat with her back facing them. The moment she closed the door, a little skin on her shoulder was revealed. A man and a woman locked the door and took off their clothes so carelessly. What kind of relationship could they have? Jin Zhe was stunned for a moment. He touched his bald head and chuckled. So that's what happened. Why is my son so considerate? He's Boss Lin's gigolo. He waved at Lin Lang, who was uneasy. All right, she doesn't want you. Forget it. Let's go back. Jin Zhe sent Li Dong and Liang Jie to their room. On the way, he made fun of Insu's jealous look. Li Dong and Liang Jie thought to themselves, who wouldn't be angry? He was giving her a gigolo in front of her husband. More importantly, Chu Xiang had just praised the gigolo. They felt like they had been cheated on. It would be strange if Insu's face wasn't angry. The two of them laughed and helped Jin Zhe to brush him off. After closing the door, they heaved a sigh of relief and rested quietly. As soon as Chu Xiang and Insu entered the room, they began to search every inch of the room for listening devices. They memorized the locations of the listening devices. Their laughter and wheezing were all for the other person to hear. What they really wanted to talk about was written on paper for the other person to see. Insu suggested that they find a way to go out and investigate after midnight. Chu Xiang and he had the same idea. If they completed the cooperation, they wouldn't be able to get any information about the secret agents. They didn't have the time to infiltrate and investigate bit by bit. They had to take a risk and risk their lives to get the name list. This was only one of Uncle Chai's hiding places, which increased the difficulty of the mission. However, Insu and Chu Xiang were very calm. If the mission was easy, it wouldn't be their turn. The more difficult it was, the calmer they should be. They were not ordinary people. Chu Xiang's acting skills were top-notch. In order to confuse the people who were monitoring them, they used their voices to act out an intimate scene. They occasionally talked about Uncle Chai and business, which was completely in line with their identities. Insu couldn't compare with Chu Xiang in this aspect. He occasionally made some sounds, which made his face turn red. The main reason was that he had never had intimate contact with a woman. When he cooperated with Chu Xiang like this in front of her, he clenched his fists but still couldn't move them. Later, he avoided Chu Xiang's eyes and didn't dare to look at her. In Chu Xiang's heart, he was a tough guy, and he was also a very quick-witted and sharp person. This was the first time she saw a tough guy blush. She even walked in front of him to take a closer look and laugh silently. Insu couldn't stand her gaze. He grabbed her arm and pulled her to the bed. Chu Xiang raised her eyebrows at him and tilted her head, as if asking him what he wanted to do. Insu suddenly realized that his actions were too easy to misunderstand. His hand that touched Chu Xiang suddenly felt like it was scalded. He let go of her hand and stepped back a few steps. Chu Xiang was so amused that she lay on the bed and laughed. Insu could imagine how loud Chu Xiang would be laughing if it weren't for the fact that there was a listening device. He waved his hand to lower the curtains, isolating him and Chu Xiang in two different spaces. They couldn't see each other, so it wouldn't be so awkward. However, he thought very well. In fact, after they couldn't see each other, he began to imagine the scene in his mind. They cooperated to make some sounds for others to hear, but he also heard Chu Xiang's voice clearly. She was on the bed, and he couldn't help but think about what she looked like inside. He patted his face to warn himself to calm down, but his face was getting redder and redder, and even his heart was beating faster. Fortunately, this situation didn't last long. Chu Xiang looked at the time, and began to talk with Yin Su about the family, affairs and the deal. Then she said that she was tired and revealed that they had fallen asleep. After monitoring them for a long time, he found that they didn't make any sound, so he thought that they were asleep. In the room, the steamy and ambiguous atmosphere from before had disappeared. Chu Xiang and Yin Su had changed into clothes that were convenient for them to move around, and were ready to go out to scout the way. On the first night, their goal was to understand the structure of the yard and find out a few key positions. If Xingyu had a chance to get something, he should cautiously get it and come back as soon as possible. However, Chu Xiang had higher requirements in her heart. She hoped to find the name list directly and complete the task as soon as possible. She had the space and many inconvenient methods. As long as she could succeed in the end, she didn't mind completing the task in her own way. After all, she was the reincarnation of a lucky star. It was normal for her to have good luck, wasn't it? In the dead of night, when the whole manor fell into silence, Chu Xiang and Yin Su quietly left the room to avoid the people monitoring the room. They blended into the night and began their dangerous task. Chapter 169. For the sake of convenience, Chu Xiang proposed to split up. As soon as she left the room, she and Yin Su went their separate ways. Although she had very little spiritual power in this life, this little bit of spiritual power was enough for her to see and hear clearly. She could see in the dark as if it was daytime, so she moved very quickly and disappeared from Yin Su's sight in the blink of an eye. Yin Su glances in her direction. He calms down, bends slightly, and starts to explore the way silently. Chu Xiang takes out an infrared heat-sensing glasses from her space. After putting them on, she knows all the positions in the manor like the back of her hand. She easily avoids everyone and finds the study. There are two people guarding the front door of the study. Chu Xiang glances at them from a distance, and quietly goes to lure two wolfhounds. The wolfhounds recognize their owners, but Chu Xiang wraps her body with wacken, so that all the animals will be very close to her. She takes out a piece of meat from her space, inserts wacken into it, and throws it far away. The two wolfhounds bark and rush to grab the piece of meat. Because of the wacken in it, the two of them immediately fight. The two people in front of the study are the closest to the dogs. Seeing this, they are shocked and quickly take out their guns to check. Half a minute after they leave the study, Chu Xiang has already sneaked into the study. She takes out her camera and takes many photos in the study. Then she begins to carefully avoid the mechanisms and traps, searching for possible information. There are only so many places to hide things in a room. Although it is difficult to find, Chu Xianglai, who has lived for tens of thousands of years, is experienced and knowledgeable. She can always figure out some secrets. It takes her 5 minutes to take down the table leg and find a list of names in the hollow table leg. Chu Xiang immediately takes photos of the 3 pages of the list with her camera, and then puts the list and the table leg back to their original position. She glances at the list, and finds that it is the list of people involved in Uncle Chai's drug business. Most of them are his partners and some powerful underlings. They are not the secret agents they are looking for, but it is still a great find. Chu Xiang searched the study for another 3 minutes, but found nothing. She compared everything to the photo she had taken when she first came in, and put everything back to its original position. There was not a single deviation. Even the scraps of paper by the drawer were put back. Then she climbed onto the beam of the door and cast a wind-type spell. Immediately, a gust of wind blew open the window and blew the pen holder off the table. The 2 men outside the door hurriedly opened the door to check. Because the window was right next to them, they saw with their own eyes that it was blown open by the wind. No one came in, so naturally, they did not suspect anything. They picked up the pen holder, closed the window, and went out. And Chu Xiang took advantage of the time when they came in, quickly flipped out of the room behind them, and quietly landed on the side of the study along the eaves, sneaking into the night. It only took her half an hour to find the things she needed and leave. Then, she went to Uncle Chai's residence. The security here was even stricter. There were more than a dozen people guarding the house. Chu Xiang spent a lot of effort to climb up to the roof. She slowly lifted a tile and looked inside. Uncle Chai was still awake. He was excited to have a new business partner and the possibility of gaining new connections. But at the same time, he was nervous and had to think carefully. He was not sleepy at all. Jin Zhe was next to him, making tea for him. The two of them were talking about Chu Xiang, and the others with a slightly serious expression. Chu Xiang and Yin Su were basically acting. Li Dong and Liang Jie lowered their presence. Yin Su and Yin Su were both experienced. They were very calm and adaptable. They did not show any flaws at all. It was only when Jin Zhe wanted to send someone to Chu Xiang that Yin Su showed some emotions. This made Jin Zhe feel more at ease, because there was no such thing as a perfect business partner with no weaknesses. There must be something wrong. Yin Su's emotions were just right to prove the relationship between them and the others. It explained where their tacit understanding came from. Uncle Chai and Jin Zhe discussed and analyzed for a long time. In the end, they still decided to cooperate with Chu Xiang, but they had to be very distracted. Chu Xiang lurked on the roof for a long time, observing the layout of the whole room, and guessing where the important things might be hidden. Then she observed Uncle Chai. Only Uncle Chai knew such important things. No matter how good a person was at hiding, he would have subconscious reactions when he was relaxed. She had studied micro-expressions when she was learning how to act. When Uncle Chai was talking with Jin Zhe and when he was alone, his various expressions and movements revealed certain information. Chu Xiang noticed that he touched the pocket watch hanging on his chest twice during this period. Before going to bed, he folded his clothes neatly on the chair, but put the pocket watch under his pillow. A pocket watch, if it had a special meaning, could be put under the pillow as a comfort. However, Chu Xiang didn't think that Uncle Chai would allow himself to have such a soft side. So this pocket watch was very likely to have another meaning that was worth paying attention to. Chu Xiang was not so strong now, so she shouldn't alert the enemy. If she guessed wrong and made a noise, they would lose the chance to go under cover. She put the tile back and quietly went back to her room. Insu had already come back. Seeing her, he hurried to her and wrote on a piece of paper for her to see. "Are you okay?" Chu Xiang shook her head and pulled him to the bed. She pulled down the curtain and whispered in his ear, "I found something good. It's the list of drug dealers." Insu didn't have time to care about the heat in his ears. His eyes immediately lit up, and he asked her with his eyes where the thing was. Chu Xiang smiled and pointed to her head. She mouthed to him, "I memorized it." Insu thought there were only a few names. He smiled and gave her a thumbs up. He whispered in her ear, "I found an arsenal. There's a very large storage room underground. It's full of drugs." Chu Xiang raised her eyebrows slightly. "So should we destroy it?" Insu nodded and quickly stepped back. Just now, when he was whispering in her ear, he could see her fair skin so close. Then she turned her head and whispered in his ear. At that moment, their breaths mingled. They were so close that his heart skipped a beat and his whole body heated up. Chu Xiang noticed that he was dodging. She gently pinched his chin and turned him closer. "Why are you dodging? Aren't we legally married? Are you afraid of me?" Insu's face turned red. He forced himself to calm down. "You're the one who's afraid, aren't you?" Just then, someone knocked on the door and asked softly, "Boss Lin, are you asleep? I just made supper. Do you want to try it?" It was Lin Lang. They were probably whispering to each other, so the person who was eavesdropping on them wondered what they were doing and sent Lin Lang to test them. In this era, it was normal for a pretty boy to want to cling to a big boss. If he had a wife, he could also have a mistress. What was wrong with working hard? Chu Xiang reached out and pulled Insu into the quilt. The two of them lay down next to each other. When she opened her mouth, she said in a hoarse, lazy, and extremely sexy voice, "No, don't disturb us." Insu's body instantly stiffened. He felt that all the places that were in contact with her were burning up. Of course, they had to give an explanation to the person who was eavesdropping on them. So after a while, Chu Xiang naturally used her voice to act out a new round of intimacy. Insu had to cooperate. He and Chu Xiang sang together and made fanciful sounds. Their bodies were tightly pressed against each other. Insu tried his best to tell himself that this was a mission to complete, and not to let his imagination run wild. However, he could not control his body's reaction at all. His face and ears were red as he closed his eyes tightly. His heart was beating like a drum as he hoped that this scene would end quickly. Chu Xiang inadvertently looked up and saw his shy look. Suddenly, she felt that this man was quite cute. He was usually a calm and tough guy, but in front of her, he never showed his softest side. This was probably what she used to hear about contrasting cuteness. In a tense and dangerous atmosphere, it was easy to get aroused. At this moment, Chu Xiang was burning up. She would never mistreat herself. Wasn't this man her husband? She leaned against his body and slowly moved up. Insu immediately turned to look at her and said sternly in a silent voice, "Don't move." Chu Xiang looked into his eyes and slowly moved closer. It was as if he was frozen in place. His heart was beating faster and faster, but he couldn't move at all. Perhaps he didn't even want to hide anymore. It was only when Chu Xiang kissed his lips that he flipped over and hugged her, as if a mechanism had been triggered. The person who was monitoring them heard the continuous sound of ambiguous breathing on this side. The previous doubts were completely dispelled. It turned out that they were not doing anything, but they were in a good relationship again. It was much more intense than before. After a long time they stopped. After this time, Chu Xiang's room was completely quiet. It was already 3 o'clock in the morning, and the person who was monitoring them had also changed shifts and gone to sleep. When the second light came, Chu Xiang and Insu had already gotten up and washed up. Insu put on his gold-rimmed glasses and looked gentle again, which was the opposite of his wild side at night. He was a little unnatural standing in front of Chu Xiang. Chu Xiang put her arms around his neck and kissed him on the lips. She smiled and said, "Everything will go well today." Insu relaxed. He put his arms around her waist and looked down at her. His eyes slowly formed into a smile. "Of course it will go well. You are my lucky star." It was time for them to complete the deal with Uncle Chai and leave. Success or failure depended on this. The longer they delayed, the more suspicious they would be. Uncle Chai treated them to breakfast and showed them the goods. He arranged a time for Chu Xiang to ask her people to go to another place to pick up the goods. Chu Xiang buried a few lightning explosion talismans by the wall when she was exploring last night. When it was about time, she detonated them one after another. Jin Zhe, Li Dong, and the others all pulled out their guns and pointed at each other. Chu Xiang stood up with a cold face. "What's going on? Is it not safe here?" Uncle Chai also stared at her suspiciously. "Of course it's safe here. I'm afraid that you leaked something. I was blindfolded and brought here. I don't even know where this place is. How could I leak anything?" Chu Xiang inched closer to him. "I'm the guest and you are the host. You have to guarantee my safety today." Chu Xiang and the others had been under Uncle Chai's surveillance. He didn't believe that it was Chu Xiang who did this. The sound was more like a premeditated surprise attack. Uncle Chai ordered his men to investigate and took Chu Xiang to a safe place under the protection of Jin Zhe. Chu Xiang walked beside Uncle Chai and continued to detonate lightning explosion talismans to create chaos and tension. She took advantage of the chaos and held Uncle Chai's arm tightly, as if she was afraid that he would run away. Uncle Chai was anxious and didn't refuse her. Chu Xiang took off his pocket watch and threw it into the space. When they passed by the pond, Uncle Chai slipped and fell in. Chapter 170. Uncle Chai. Jin Zhe and the others shouted and jumped into the water to save Uncle Chai. Chu Xiang squatted behind the bushes and pretended to be nervous. She shouted, "Quick! We are too obvious here. Hurry!" After Uncle Chai was rescued, he looked at Chu Xiang suspiciously. He saw Chu Xiang hiding vigilantly. Insu, Li Dong, and Liang Jie surrounded her on 3 sides, protecting her safely in the middle. Their jaws were tense, and their fingers were on the trigger. It was completely in line with their identities. There was nothing suspicious about it. He touched his chest subconsciously and his expression changed. He jumped into the water. Uncle Chai, what's wrong? Jinzei reached out in surprise. He was confused. Uncle Chai, are you hurt? Let me bring you up. Uncle Chai shouted. I lost my pocket watch. You must find it. Quick, call everyone here. Also, he pointed at Chu Xiong with a gloomy face and suppressed anger in his voice. Arrest them all. Search them. Chu Xiong turned around and looked at the approaching thugs. She stood up and said coldly, Uncle Chai, what do you mean by this? Uncle Chai narrowed his eyes and stared at her, not missing the slightest change in her expression. He said in a low voice, I'm sorry. I lost something valuable and I must find it immediately. I'm sorry, Boss Lin. Oh, Uncle Chai, are you suspecting that I stole it? Chu Xiong sneered and took out the gun at her waist. Uncle Chai, you are looking down on me. In Su and the other two raised 6 guns and pointed them around. Uncle Chai's men also took out their guns. The atmosphere became tense. The lightning explosion talismans that Chu Xiong buried had exploded. The quiet manner became even more tense. The smell of gunpowder filled the air. The situation was very serious. Uncle Chai's face was still cold. He held Jinzei's hand and walked to the shore step by step. He stared at Chu Xiong and said word by word. You lost something valuable. I must find out the truth today. If this has nothing to do with Boss Lin, I will apologize to Boss Lin and give her a satisfactory answer. Impossible. If I, Chu Xiong, let you do whatever you want to me, how am I going to survive in the underworld? Chu Xiong pointed the gun at his head and said coldly, Let's die together if you dare. Uncle Chai stared at her for 2 seconds and suddenly laughed. You're still young and impetuous. You'd rather die than give in. I admire you. How about this? Take it that I, Mr. Chai, would like to ask Boss Lin to cooperate with me. If there is a misunderstanding, Boss Lin will be my closest partner from now on. All the goods Boss Lin wants will be free of charge. How about that? In Su timely gave Chu Xiong a way out and said in a low voice, Sister Xiong, we don't know what's going on outside. Safety first. Since Uncle Chai is so sincere, let's take it as another opportunity for cooperation. Chu Xiong looked at Uncle Chai and remained silent for a moment. She put away her gun and said coldly, Only this once. Uncle Chai gave his subordinates a look. Immediately, someone respectfully invited them to the nearest room. He even found a maid to search Chu Xiong's body in the shortest time possible. Chu Xiong threw the pocket watch into her dimensional space. Of course, nothing was found. In Su and the rest of the men did the same. Uncle Chai was relieved when he heard the result. This meant that they were friends and not enemies. There was no need for him to be so nervous. He admired Chu Xiong for being his partner. Since the pocket watch had fallen into the pond, it was only a matter of time before they found it. Uncle Chai asked his men to surround the pond and asked Jinzei to lead a large group of men to search for the pocket watch. On the other hand, the men who went out to check on the outside returned one by one. They did not find anything unusual. Uncle Chai had a bad feeling about this. He went back to his room to take a shower and change his clothes with a heavy heart. Chu Xiong took the opportunity to wash her hands and opened the pocket watch in her room. Indeed, there was a name list hidden in the pocket watch. It was the name list of the spies they were looking for. Chu Xiong put away the pocket watch and walked out in a relaxed mood. She picked up the teacup and took a sip. When she put down the teacup, she put the lid on the teacup. Liang Jie's pupils constricted. He lowered his eyes to suppress his excitement. Li Dong also took a deep breath to calm himself down. This was the secret signal they had agreed on. As long as someone put the lid on the teacup, it meant that they had completed the task and got the name list. In Su poured more tea for Chu Xiong as if nothing had happened. However, he was just as surprised as Li Dong and the others. He carefully recalled everything that had happened in the past 2 nights. If Chu Xiong had gotten the name list at any time, it could only have been when she was next to Uncle Chai. This was consistent with the important item that Uncle Chai had lost. However, they had all been searched. Where had Chu Xiong hidden the item? If everything had been Chu Xiong's plan, Then the explosion must have been Chu Xiang's masterpiece. Chu Xiang could only have arranged it when she was exploring that night. She had also found another name list that night. How much had she done? How had she done it? Chu Xiang was unbelievably powerful. For the first time, Yin Su trusted the person around him unconditionally before he knew the details of the matter. This person was his wife, his true partner. A strong sense of pride rose in his heart. However, on the surface, he remained calm and cooperated with Chu Xiang, waiting for Uncle Chai to give them an explanation. Uncle Chai did not know who had set off the explosion, and could not find the pocket watch with the name list. He was on the verge of exploding. He was so angry that he wanted to kill someone. He was not in the mood to deal with Chu Xiang. Since it was not their doing, he did not want them to stay any longer. He did not want them to spy on him anymore. Therefore, he sent them away. Of course, he would definitely deliver the goods that he had promised. He signed a list, stamped it with his personal seal, and sent it to Chu Xiang. With this, Chu Xiang could directly pick up the goods within his sphere of influence. The amount was huge, and it was his apology to his partner. This was exactly what Chu Xiang wanted. She maintained a dissatisfied attitude, and left the manor with Yin Su and the others. It was only when they were the only ones left, and they had even changed cities, that they returned to their original character, and showed a happy expression. Li Dong whispered excitedly, "Sister Xiang, is that true? How did you do it?" Chu Xiang raised her eyebrows and smiled. "It's a secret." Li Dong and Liang Jie were curious. They elbowed Yin Su. You don't want to know? Why don't you ask? It's fine as long as the mission is completed. Why do you need to ask about the details? It's a secret. The fewer people who know, the better. Yin Su pushed the two of them away, so that they would not continue to bother Chu Xiang. Liang Jie's eyes widened. "Captain, we're from the same team. Why can't you tell us? It's because you didn't do anything." Yin Su shrugged. "I'll just take it as a drill. Remember this experience well, and write a summary for each of you when you get back." "What? Write a summary? We didn't do anything." The two of them immediately complained. They did not have time to ask Chu Xiang how she did it. They returned to the platoon smoothly. Chu Xiang immediately handed in the name list. Yin Su accompanied her as the captain, and explained the mission to the regiment commander. However, when he saw that there were so many names on the name list, he could not help but be stunned. Chu Xiang found the name list in the study and memorized it all. He thought that it would be easy to memorize only a few names. Who knew that there were hundreds of names? This was the name list of all the people that Uncle Chai had worked with in the past few decades. How did Chu Xiang memorize it? When the regiment commander asked this question, Chu Xiang smiled and replied, "It's okay." The regiment commander never thought that the reason that had choked the soldier countless times would also choke him this time. Yin Su pushed the name list in front of the commander and smiled. "Chu Xiang is the treasure of our group. Commander, you can't let Chu Xiang be treated unfairly in the future." The regiment commander's face turned red and he coughed lightly. "What do you mean by fair or unfair? How is it unfair? Your title of Soldier King has been snatched away by your wife, and you still have the nerve to laugh here. Go out and train." Chu Xiang said in surprise. "We worked so hard and risked so much to make a contribution. Shouldn't we have a holiday? Or let us supervise other people's training?" "I don't want to train." The regiment commander choked again and pointed at her. "You brat, this is the first time I've seen someone so self-righteous about not wanting to train. All right, great hero, go and supervise the training of others. You can't show your faces for the time being. Don't even think about taking a vacation. Once all these people are captured, I'll give you a long vacation so that you can go back and visit your families. What do you think? This treatment isn't bad, right?" Chu Xiang and Yin Su stood up and saluted. "We'll listen to the regiment commander's arrangements." All the soldiers in the barracks were no longer in the mood to train. Ever since they heard the news from Liang Jie that they had completed the mission, they were all in a bad mood. Wasn't it a high-risk mission? Wasn't it an extremely difficult mission? They had only been out for a few days. How did they come back without a single trace? They didn't even alert the enemy and gave them the most time to act. Wasn't this too incredible? They had been waiting for this question for a long time. When they saw Chu Xiang and Insu appear, they immediately surrounded them and asked them what had happened. Insu quickly pushed them away and shouted, "All of you, stand properly. Do you think that confidential missions are something that you can casually ask about? Go back and train well. Strive to be selected for the next mission." Everyone felt a wave of regret and dejectedly returned to their original positions. Chu Xiang clapped her hands and smiled. "Didn't everyone want to learn my training methods? The regiment commander ordered me and Insu to supervise your training. Now I'll arrange the training program for you. How about it? Do you want to come? Come. This is good." Chu Xiang crossed her arms and looked at them. "But I'll say this first. If you want to become stronger quickly, you'll have to put in 10 or 100 times more effort than others. If anyone can't take it and quit later, then you might as well quit now, so as not to affect everyone's morale. No quit. Whoever quits is a coward." "Yes. Whoever quits is a coward." Everyone's enthusiasm was immediately ignited. They were really curious how Chu Xiang became so strong. She was clearly very weak before she entered university. How could she become so strong in such a short time? They began to train according to Chu Xiang's arrangements. Then for a whole 6 hours in the afternoon, they went up the mountain, into the water, climbed walls, and dug holes. They thoroughly experienced the so-called or devil training. When the dinner bell rang, all of them felt a sense of liberation. They finally understood a principle in their sorry state. Even if they provoke someone, they shouldn't provoke Chu Xiang. She really held a grudge, and she would hold it for a long time. Why were they so stupid to show off their power to Chu Xiang in the first place? If they had the chance to do it all over again, they would definitely lower their heads and greet her the moment they met. Chapter 172. While the Chu family was treating Chu Xiang as their hope for a meteoric rise, Chu Xiang was leading the troops to train and become her devil instructor. She broke the necks of those people and made them complain incessantly. They only begged her to quickly take a holiday. When she returned to the military camp, everyone immediately urged her to pick up the call when they heard that she had received a call from home. They desperately prayed that something would happen so that they could quickly take the big devil away. Chu Xiang had already seen through their thoughts. She smiled at them and said, "Don't worry. Even if I have something to do, I will arrange the training. I won't delay your training." Everyone's faces stiffened. Who was worried? Who was afraid of being delayed? They didn't want this instructor, okay? Chu Xiang laughed and left. They collapsed on the ground and rested, waiting for the devil to return. They hoped that Chu Xiang would leave as soon as possible, but this kind of training was beneficial to them. They knew better than anyone else that they had long accepted Chu Xiang as their instructor. They wouldn't even let others snatch her away. How could they really hope for her to leave? Insu saw their state from afar. He walked up to Chu Xiang and smiled. "That bunch of people have been tamed by you. You're really something." Chu Xiang raised her hand and scratched his chin. "Haven't you been tamed by me too, Instructor In?" The soldiers in the distance immediately laughed. Insu grabbed Chu Xiang's hand and pulled it down. He tried his best to sternly say, "Stop fooling around." However, his ears turned red. Chu Xiang chuckled and leaned close to his face. "Old antique, why are you so naughty in the room? Cough, cough, cough. Let's go and see who called you." Insu quickly glanced around. Seeing that no one had heard their conversation, he hurriedly pulled Chu Xiang's arm and left. The two entered the office and saw the regiment commander first. The regiment commander looked at Chu Xiang sternly for a long time. Insu was unhappy. "Regiment commander, what are you doing?" The commander picked up his teacup but did not drink it. He said seriously, "Chu Xiang, you are a rare talent. The higher-ups have the intention to train you. Your future is bright. You must not destroy your own future." Chu Xiang said thoughtfully, "The people looking for me are from the Chu family? Did they commit crimes?" The commander paused for a moment and nodded. "Go and find out the specifics yourself. Think clearly about what you should and shouldn't do." Chu Xiang smiled. "Of course. I'm a righteous person. I've always followed the country. The regiment commander was very satisfied with Chu Xiang's reaction. He asked her to answer the phone, and asked Yin Su to ask about the situation of the Chu family. However, he and Yin Su were just outside, separated from Chu Xiang by a wall. The door was not closed, so they could still hear the phone call. Chu Xiang picked up the phone and heard a burst of crying. It was old Madame Chu's voice. She had just said hello, when old Madame Chu snatched the phone from her hands and shouted at her. Chu Xiang, you finally picked up the phone. Where have you been? Your brother is going to be killed. Come back quickly and save your brother. You can't let Daxin suffer in there. The child is so hungry that he's only skin and bones. Ooh. Mom, you have to be nice. Don't make Chu Xiang angry. I'll do it. Li Yuezhen pulled old Madame Chu away and snatched the phone. She had become a hero because of Chu Xiang. She was so confident that she did not take old Madame Chu seriously. She took the phone and smiled gently. Xiang, it's Mom. When are you coming back? Mom misses you so much that I can't sleep. Daxin also misses you. He wants to see his sister. You've become successful. We're all happy for you. You'll bring honor to your ancestors. Chu Xiang touched her chin and thought about the concept of this era. Bring honor to our ancestors? After I married into the Yin family, I'll be the Yin family's ancestor and ancestor, right? I don't think this has anything to do with your Chu family. Li Yuezhen felt as if she had swallowed 10 egg yolks. She choked and almost fainted. She opened her mouth and was about to scold her, but before she spoke, she quickly stopped and laughed dryly. Ah, it's all the same. Isn't your surname Chu? Now women can take up half of the burden. Our family can also benefit from it. Can you not care about your family? I'm your biological mother. You crawled out of my stomach, right? After saying this, Li Yuezhen became more confident. She went straight to the point under Chu Weigua's urging. Well, Chu Xiang, it's like this. Your brother went out to play with his friends. He didn't know the way. It was his friend who led him. He went into a person's house. He didn't go there on purpose. He thought it was his friend's house. Who knew that the bastard would cheat Daxin? He actually went to steal money and was caught. Well, wasn't there no accident? That person's body was too weak. He died with just a touch. What does this have to do with Daxin? It has nothing to do with him, and he was even caught. You should quickly explain to the police chief. Or you can talk to the county magistrate. Hurry up and release your brother. He is innocent. He has suffered so much in prison. It's a big loss. The police chief was sitting next to them. He narrowed his eyes and took a sip of tea. He sneered in his heart. This woman was acting as if it was real. She probably believed it herself. That person was clearly hit on the head by Chu Xian. However, he still needed to see Chu Xiang's attitude first. There were many unjust, false, and wrong cases in this era. According to this woman's record, Chu Xian would be innocent. At most, he would be locked up as an accomplice for a few months. Li Yuezhen said a lot of things sincerely, but there was no response from the other side. She looked at the receiver in confusion. Hello? Chu Xiang? Are you listening? Chu Xiang picked up the receiver on the table and said lazily. Are you done? If you are done, call the police. I am not interested in listening to your story. You. Li Yuezhen's face was red. The receiver was very loud. People around them heard Chu Xiang's words. She suddenly felt ashamed and angry. She was Chu Xiang's biological mother. However, before she lost her temper, Chu Weigua covered her mouth and dragged her aside. Then he gave the receiver to the police chief. They were a little arrogant these days, but Chu Weigua still remembered that Chu Xian relied on Chu Xiang to save his life. He couldn't offend Chu Xiang just because they were biological parents. The police chief glanced at them. He cleared his throat and picked up the receiver with a smile. Hello, Colonel Chu. I am Fong Tong, the police chief of our county. Chu Xiang said directly. Hello, Chief Fong. I want to make the situation clear first. I have already cut off all ties with the Chu family. The captain of our team and all the villagers can testify. No matter what happened to them, it has nothing to do with me. You don't need to contact me. Feng Tong was a little surprised. Seeing that the Chu family was so anxious to grab the receiver, he raised his hand and gestured for someone to stop them. He said tentatively, "Well, because the situation is a little special, now your deeds are known all over the country. People from all over the country are very concerned about our county. Naturally, they are also very concerned about the environment you grew up in, including the Chu family. Now Chu Lan and Chu Xian have been locked up. It is very likely to have a bad impact, so we still need to deal with it carefully. You see, do you want me to tell you the specific situation?" Chu Xiang was also a little curious about what happened to them. Seeing that it was still early, she pulled a chair and sat down. She poured tea and said, "Chief Feng, please. According to our investigation, Chu Xian sneaked into a family with 2 people half a month ago." Feng Tong recounted the whole story of Chu Xian's incident in detail. He was not afraid of anything, but he really felt that this matter should be dealt with properly. If they were not careful, it was very likely to become the focus of the country. It could become a positive example, or it could become a negative example, or it could even become a big joke. Whether he would be rewarded or removed from his position was very likely to depend on his decision. Before he made a decision, of course, he had to carefully understand Chu Xiang's attitude. Chu Xiang did not expect that a life would be involved. After listening to him, she directly said, "Chief Feng, it's good that you do things according to the law. If they insist on being my family and want to receive any special treatment, then I think that military family members should be punished severely to serve as a warning to others." The Chu family was dumbfounded. "Chu Xiang!" Old Madame Chu screamed and scolded loudly in front of the microphone. "That's your biological brother, you beast. You're worse than a pig or a dog. You be *tch. Why didn't I strangle you to death back then?" Chu Xiang laughed. "Aren't the people you should have strangled to death are Chu Xian and Chu Lan? They brought shame to your old Chu family's ancestors. If they really had a spirit like you, I reckon that even the coffins wouldn't be able to hold them down. You still have the nerve to make a fuss? Aren't you afraid of being exiled by your ancestors after you die? Alright, I'm busy. If you have any problems, go find your reincarnated lucky star, and your only child. I'm an outsider who has been chased out of the Chu family, so I won't get involved. Chief Feng, if there are people who attempt to cause trouble, threaten, or interfere with the process of handling the case, I hope that Chief Feng will deal with them strictly and let outsiders see the discipline of our county. Thank you for your hard work." "Alright, then I won't bother Colonel Chu anymore." Feng Tong was in a good mood, and the corners of his mouth curled up. With Chu Xiang's words, he would definitely be able to get a good reputation for being upright and plain-spoken if he dealt with this matter strictly. This was a good opportunity for him to be promoted. The Chu family refused to let him hang up, but it was useless. They were not the family of a hero now, but a group of unruly people who were interfering with the police's handling of the case. Chief Feng directly waved his hand to have them detained, and did not talk to them at all. The police below scolded them for being quiet. If they continued to cause trouble, it would not be as simple as being detained. Interfering with the police's handling of the case was illegal, and attacking the police was even more serious. The villagers like the Chu family had never seen the police in their lives. If they had seen it in the past, even if they did not do anything wrong, they would not dare to raise their heads. These people had almost floated to the top because of Chu Xiang's heroic deeds. Now that they were suddenly thrown into hell, not only did they panic, but they also felt boundless fear. Not only could Chu Xiang not have a meteoric rise, but they also had to be dealt with severely. Chu Xian and Chu Lan could not be rescued, and even they were all locked up. What should they do? They were finished. When Chu Lan heard the news, she fell to the ground and laughed loudly. Her laughter was shrill and ear-piercing, and she laughed until tears flowed down her face. The others could not help but frown when they saw her crazy appearance. Just when the prison guard came to take her to see a doctor, she suddenly calmed down and wiped away her tears. "I just want to make a phone call, just a phone call." The phone call she wanted to make was not for Chu Xiang, but for her ex-husband, Song Yang. This was not a taboo, and the prison guard agreed to her request. After several turns, The phone call connected to Song Yang. Chulan laughed when she heard his voice. She laughed very happily. Song Yang, Chu Xiang has become an officer and a great hero. Do you regret it? If you didn't dislike her disfigurement, she would be your wife now. Ha 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 ha. Do you regret it? Do you regret it, Song Yang? You're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.